Max in the studio.
Fanny pack is actually a fanny pack. It's true. You know what a fanny pack in Texas always means, though. 100% of the time. Yeah, knife. No, the knife is in my pocket. That was when I first got to Texas. How long you lived in Texas?
Since October. I'm from Philadelphia. I moved down from New York.
Oh, dude, so you're brand new.
I escaped New York.
Okay, so do you know what a fanny pack means in Texas?
No, I'm still.
Do you want me to show you?
Yes, please.
I would say at least 90% of the time, when you see a dude with a fanny pack,
he's got.
Oh shit!
Holy shit!
He's carrying, bro.
Oh,
I'm not just carrying.
This thing's heavy. Well,
that's a pretty Gucci'd out Sig 320 X carry.
Yeah.
As you should.
Are we gonna get kicked off YouTube for this? I hope not.
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, that's the. That's the.
I carry Israeli style though, so it's not actually chambered. You know, which a lot of gun guys are. No, I always carry chambered. The Israelis do it. I can do it.
Yeah, you got to be ready.
But this is you see a fanny pack in Texas. 90% of the time, dudes pack.
Yeah, born and raised in Philadelphia. Come from a very gun adverse family. My mother.
We're in downtown Austin now. Downtown Austin used to be so safe. I would consider it a semi-permissive environment now.
I mean, I just...
Oh, yeah, for you from Philly, this is like nothing. This is a kindergarten.
Exactly. Well,
dude, downtown Philly is like a zombie apocalypse.
Yes.
It's horrible, yes. No,
well,
this is kindergarten for you.
I haven't lived in Philly, and since I went to college, I went to DePaul. I was telling you, I went to DePaul. We both had experiences at the Ray where we got severely injured.
Yep.
Your appendix burst, and I tore my ACL. Then I moved to New York. Lived in Williamsburg.
Yep.
For a while, COVID happened. My wife and I had a son in a studio. We're like, we need to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
So we went and lived down the shore for a couple of
years. Did you do home birth, actually?
No, we didn't. It happened. He was born in February 2020, so right before they wouldn't let the fathers in and the families in, so we got lucky. Yeah, we lived down the shore in Jersey for a couple of years, and it was like things just kept getting crazier and crazier.
Why would you... Really? Why the shore in Jersey?
It's different. We were on an island with like 2,000 people. There was nobody there.
Oh, yeah. There are certain places of it that are nice.
Yeah.
I forget. I always forget. That's true. Yeah.
Down by Cape May, southern tip.
Right.
And yeah, so we weren't going back to Philly, and shit hit the fan. Things stayed crazy, and then obviously the Bitcoin scene's popping down here. I've got a lot of reasons to be down here from a business perspective, and I was like, all right, I'm getting to fucking Texas.
Yeah. Dude, apparently, like I have to admit ignorance. Like I'm not that well versed in the Bitcoin sort of social sphere. And when you tweeted about me being on the show, I've got 2 or 3 friends, obviously, who are deep Bitcoin people. Like that's their identity, is they're Bitcoiners, right? Before human or father or husband, they're Bitcoiners. And literally all 3 of them freaked out and like texted me. Like I'm sure Brad's watching right now. He's like, how did you contact him? How did you convince him to be on the show? I'm like, I don't really know him. He reached out to me. I'm excited to be on. It seems cool, but you know.
Well, like I was telling you, it's just surreal for me. Like I was reading, I hope they serve beer in hell in high school, and I was very influential. Like meeting you now, and I loosely followed your personal or career arc after I hope they serve beer in hell, and you started the company where you help people write books, and which
I just left literally last month.
Really? Yep. Amicable terms, good terms.
Oh yeah, of course, totally. Oh yeah, as good as it gets.
Yeah, but it's like because it's interesting having that perspective from 2009 when I was reading that book to where you are now. It seems like a lot has changed.
I mean, everything.
Yeah. What?
Dude, I 4 kids, all with the same woman that I'm married to. Right. I live in a ranch an hour outside of Austin, which is amazing, with like animals, and we grow things, and I'm like as happy as I could be, like emotionally stable. So yeah, dude, I'm about as opposite as I could be from the I hope they serve beer in hell days. And I don't mean it like disparagingly, like I was a horrible person. I definitely did some horrible shit, no doubt. But I was a very different person then in a lot of ways.
I can tell. It's going through the stories in that book, the donut shop story. Again, we were reminiscing over you having your appendix burst at the Ray.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
As a 17, 18-year-old in high school, I thought they were the fucking most incredible stories.
You know what? That's so funny. Well, I wrote all those stories for my friends, right? And so like I wasn't a hero to my friends. We were all doing the same shit, right? I wasn't even the funniest of my friends. I was just the one who wrote it down. And so like my expectation when I wrote those was that people would think, yeah, they were funny. But that was it, right? Oh, it's just another dude with a funny drunken story. I have funny drunken stories too. And people my age basically had that reaction. What I totally did not expect at all, which is stupid in hindsight, but I was stupid at the time, so it makes sense I didn't expect it, was that there'd be a generation of people that like looked at it like amazing, fantastical, unbelievable, aspirational shit. Like I didn't know people could do this. And of course high schoolers would think that because I would have thought that in high school, right? But I was 27 when I was writing that, and so like it didn't occur to me because I was done. That was 10 years ago, and I'd forgotten it. And then a whole generation of dudes were like, "Oh my God, you're a god," and I'm like, I got drunk and I fucked a fat girl. I'm not a god. I'm barely even cool. Like I'm definitely not a god. And there were so many dudes that deified me for a while. And at first I was like, oh yeah, this is awesome. I'm a god. And then of course I realized I wasn't. But it actually got annoying because clearly this didn't happen with you, but a lot of dudes would deify me, but do it in a way so that they, in a way almost to negate themselves, right? Like I'm going to put him on a pedestal so I don't have to do the things that I want to do. Because if someone doing cool stuff is so amazing that I can't be them, then I don't have to worry about not being them. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's almost like they're very similar to haters, except it's like the photo negative of a hater. Right? A hater puts you down because they're jealous that you have the courage to do the thing they want to do but don't. Someone who worships you elevates you on a pedestal so they don't have to, in their mind, ask themselves the question, why am I not doing my version of that at least, right? And so like it took me a long time to realize that, man. And thankful, a lot of guys obviously grew out of that and were like, oh no, he's just a dude. He just did. I can do the same shit, and that's awesome. But the ones who never outgrew that, like, it was sad in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it is sad. But I think what really made that book particularly good is that you can fucking write, and that's I write a daily newsletter.
Yeah,
and that's
you realize how hard writing is when you start doing it.
Yeah, it's not easy, but it is fun. It is rewarding.
It is. Once you practice and you get good, and actually writing's easy. Getting people to want to pay attention to your writing is what's difficult.
Yeah, I find that, especially a daily newsletter about Bitcoin, you have to really...
Oh yeah, good luck with that.
Try to connect. Well, it's easier these days.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot going on now.
The clown world makes it very easy.
It's true.
You can just connect.
Oh, I bet you got a lot. Didn't Biden try and regulate? Did I see something about that, or is it just more nonsense?
We'll see. Apparently he's going to come out with an executive order.
I bet it'll be great.
It's going to be incredible, but it's...
Well, the federal government has such a track record of being so smart and ahead of the curve on cryptos.
Well, not only crypto, everything.
Right, of course.
The COVID response.
Of course.
They can centrally plan our economy very easily. They're doing
best.
an incredible job. That's why I reached out to you, right? Because I read... First piece I read of yours in a while, admittedly, was the Doomer Optimism, the first part of that series. And again, I think Bitcoiners, I think, align very
Dude, I
tightly.
had a flood of Bitcoiners reach out to me.
Really?
Like a flood. Well, you already talked about two that I met in person. It's so funny, man, because I've always been... Man, I actually was involved not super early in Bitcoin, but quasi early. Like the first, I think James Altucher gets credit for being the first person to sell a book with Bitcoin or something. I helped him launch that book. It was his idea to do Bitcoin, and that was in 2013. And so I bought some then. I still have it, and obviously I wish I bought more like everyone on earth. But I was always like, oh yeah, this is cool. Like this seems awesome. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. And then like since then, it's like. It's weathered every attack, and what, and I always understood the promise, right? Like I get it, I totally get it. It makes perfect sense. The only question is it going to work, right? And it looks like it is, and it's pretty cool. But I didn't get deep into the Bitcoin subculture, right?
Yeah,
dude, it's a real. It's not even a. It's like a. I don't want to use the word cult because that has a lot of negative connotations. But it is definitely like it's a movement. Is a better word.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. It's a movement. I mean, again, I was 17 when I was a senior in high school. It was 2009. So the great financial crisis was happening. I just happened to be taking like an economics elective class. Yeah. At that time, my professor was very attuned to what was going on. He was like, gentlemen, I went to an all-guys school. He was like, pay attention. We read through TARP. So like 17, I was radicalized.
Oh, wow.
I was like, this is all fucked. I went to DePaul, studied economics, worked at a managed futures fund. We traded currencies there. And then, so like as an analyst, I had to write commentaries on why the fund was performing against market movements. And that dealt with me following the Federal Reserve. And at the time, Janet Yellen, and I vividly remember one.
So you got to see the grift up close.
Oh, very up close.
Keep going.
The grift for me, really, when I was like, you know what, this is complete bullshit. And I was tangentially paying attention to Bitcoin. What really pushed me over the edge was one Fed meeting. The market started trading positively because Janet Yellen was wearing a purple jacket, and that imbued power and strength. And that was
it is the color of royalty.
Yes, exactly. It's a regal color. And
you know why, right? Do you know the story?
I don't recall off the top of my head, but I do know it is associated with regalness.
It is. Do you want me to tell you why?
Yes, please.
It's like just a super interesting historical anecdote. All right, so most colors are easy to essentially produce out of natural materials. Like there's a lot of ways to produce red, etc. Purple is very, very difficult. And for many, many centuries, eons, the only known way to produce the color purple was essentially to smash up a bunch of I forget the name, a certain mollusks that basically only grew in the Lebanese Phoenician area, right? Modern day Israel, Lebanon, right? And so it was called Tyrolean purple because the city of Tyre was the main city that traded in it. And so it was insanely expensive. The Phoenician trade, the Phoenicians were, right? Like they were like, a lot of people say their trade empire was built on purple, basically, right? And so the only people who could afford it were royalty. And it was an honest signal of wealth because you can't fake purple when you have to crush up, whatever it was, 10 tons of mollusks to make enough purple for like a scarf or something crazy like that. And so that's how purple got associated with royalty.
Yeah, makes sense. It is a scarce, hard to make product. Sets you apart from the plebs, if you will.
Exactly. That is exactly true.
I'm surprised like lavender didn't play into it at all.
You mean like the flower?
Yeah.
Yeah. From my understanding, and I am not a biochemist or a color person, you can't really synthesize, or you can't pull enough lavender to get an actual color that holds off of it. But again, I know just enough to tell a cool story about this, and that's it.
The regality of purple.
Right. If you ask me to actually make purple, I'm like, what do you want from me?
Well, it's
Go
perfect.
to the paint store.
Move forward to our modern day, and markets are trading off of that color because we had a Fed chairwoman wearing it. It's like, strength. Dollar's going to get stronger. That's, and for me at that point, I was like 22, working in the West Loop. I was like, this is all fucked.
Yes.
Let me dive into Bitcoin. And then for me personally, my personal journey where I am now, I truly believe, and why I think you're recognizing it's a movement, and I would argue that many other, or state and speak on behalf of many other Bitcoiners, not all Bitcoiners, but a lot of Bitcoiners believe that the core issue of our society right now is that we fucked up the money. We need to fix the money. All the negative externalities.
It's like the joke, Bitcoin fixes this, right? Yeah, of course.
You need to fix the money. The world cannot accurately price markets anymore because we have a bad measuring stick in the dollar and other currencies because they're essentially rubber because they can be manipulated at will.
Of course.
Ex nihilo.
Yes, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously anyone who's willing to look, yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's and so that's why I think some people call it a cult. Some people call it a movement, and it's because many Bitcoiners believe very deeply that if we can fix the money, we can then begin to fix the world. That's what the Bitcoin, you can't fix a bullet wound with Bitcoin, but maybe.
I don't know. It's a pretty funny meme. People shut up, Bitcoin fixes this.
But maybe if you get a sound money in the world and people are able to accumulate capital and save in the long term, they're less likely to get involved in physical conflict that would result in a bullet. In the first place.
It is a very plausible argument.
Yes. So what is your perspective on Bitcoin now? The two gentlemen that you met with to talk about Citadel theory told me that you're a bit skeptical of Bitcoin being able to survive a state attack. Is that correct?
No. Okay. So overall, I love anything that helps humans exercise their sovereignty. I'm on board with. I think Bitcoin's fantastic. I totally get the argument. Everything. All of the logical arguments about Bitcoin, I think honestly are right. I think at a minimum they stand up to scrutiny. And I honestly, like, if I'm making a steelman attack on Bitcoin, I think that there's no doubt it's a better currency and a better approach to money. I don't think there's any doubt, right? What I brought up with them was the argument that and again, I'm not an expert in the business. It's probably a great place for me to bring this up because I've never heard a Bitcoiner give a real effective answer to this, right? Okay. So let's say, let me just paint a basic scenario, right? Like without getting crazy in the details. Let's say the G20 gets together, right? All world leaders, people, Trudeau, Biden, all horrific sociopaths, basically, all, power hungry, even if you don't call them evil, very power hungry, right? All running the most powerful governments in the world, all have root access into the strongest militaries in the world, right? Let's say they actually figure this out, if they haven't already. They figure out, oh man, these Bitcoin dorks are actually not dorks, they're right. We're fucked, right? If we let them win, then we lose power. Because that is, if you follow the argument all the way through, one of the primary arguments for government and one of the primary ways they exercise power is through money. Of course, that's the converse of the argument you just made. So why are sociopaths going to give up power? They don't. They're not going to. That's never how it's worked in history. People take power back from sociopaths. So let's say the G2, they get together and they figure this out, or their handlers do, whatever. And they're like, okay, we're going to come out and not only are we going to ban Bitcoin, we're going to roll out a central bank digital currency. Please don't pepper me with details about that because they're politicians. It's probably a stupid idea. But they have a quote replacement, right? Now, of course you can't ban Bitcoin. I understand you can't ban math. I understand that it's a network. I get that it will survive in some form or another, right? I totally get it, true. But what they also do, they're not stupid in all ways. So all of their militaries and their police forces have a coordinated attack, and they seize, the offices of, let's say, the top 5, 10 exchanges. Doesn't have to be that many, honestly. The ones that are all, registered and, like doing business above board legally, they just go attack them all, right? And take them, like arrest them, shut them all down. At a minimum, the price of Bitcoin probably 80%, maybe 98%, right?
Possibly.
And so at that point, of course, it doesn't eradicate it from the earth, obviously. And in fact, you can make a good argument that might be good for the long-term resilience of the Bitcoin network and blah, blah. Cool, I get that. But when the men with guns show up to take your shit, what do you do? That's always been the problem with Bitcoin, right? Mm-hmm. Is that I'm not saying the benefit of it is it doesn't have a set of sociopaths running it. But the detriment is it doesn't have anyone, I don't want to say protecting it, but enforcing it. So it's going to require, at the level the world governments and markets work right now, it's either going to require, for it to be adopted the way that a lot of people envision, a fundamental wholesale shift of the entire way that commerce and exchange works, which might be on net a good thing. But that doesn't happen slowly or easily. Or it's going to require sociopaths to voluntarily give up power, which they're not going to do.
No,
right?
They're never going to give up power.
Right. So the summary of the, not even a critique, the summary of the the thing that I've never heard a great answer to is when the sociopaths with guns show up to shut it down, what happens then? Because they don't actually have to shut down the math of Bitcoin. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, so I know what you're saying. So they could shut down the exchanges. They
can shut down the exchanges. They can scare the vast majority of people who are using it into not using it, right? They can put enough of the whales on a run, right? Mm-hmm. They can't, of course they can't make it go away. We've seen what happens when powerful central governments try to ban it. It doesn't work. I get it. But what happens when even the 5 most powerful countries in the world, or 5 of the top 20, decide we're going to do this?
I guess we'll see. That's going to happen. So.
Right? No, that's the thing I've always told. Man, no, but most Bitcoiners at this point, well, first of all, the ones that don't get hyper defensive and angry will say, oh, well, they give me reasons why that's not going to happen. And I'm like, you might be right. Maybe this time will be different. And maybe this time the sociopaths will give up their power voluntarily. When has that happened in history, though?
Never. We got to fight for it. Hey.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying that there needs to be a Bitcoin army, because that's silly. That doesn't even make sense in terms of like a actual physical army, right? But the only way this works is if enough people, the Steelman counter, and it's not even a counter. The Steelman argument against it, or the Steelman counter is, Bitcoin becomes so pervasive and so entrenched and so many powerful people are bought in that it essentially, it's like a meme that co-ops enough minds to move for it, right?
Yes.
I even get that counter argument, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. The only issue with that right now is that there is still a meat on meat issue that I don't know where the other meat's coming from.
Oh, it's right here. I'll fucking, if the fucking FBI or CIA came in here right now, I was like, give me all your Bitcoin, and tell them to shut the fuck up and get the hell out of here. Like, you're never getting my private keys, and you're never getting the private keys. And
so hold on, but you've worked in finance.
Yes.
Okay. So I have, when you do like fancy stuff in media or whatever, you get invited to, like, I never got invited to Davos, but there's a lot of feeder organizations into Davos, right? And so I went to a couple of events of like the feeder, the low level, or the B list ones where you have to move up to get to the A list, the quote A list. I don't know about you, man, but like those, I went to University of Chicago. It started in econ. Didn't end up majoring in it for a couple different reasons. One of them is because I was like, hold on, a lot of this is bullshit. This doesn't even make sense. I know, which like a lot of my professors would roll in their graves to hear me say that, but
that's true. Keynesian indoctrination is true.
But well, no.
Friedman, you have the Friedman school.
Chicago is the opposite school, but still, there's a lot of foundational stuff that's nonsense, especially in macro. And macro is literally just almost fundamental nonsense. But I got recruited out of Chicago, Goldman, JP Morgan, all the people I've ever met in finance. And I'm not like, it's not like I'm hanging out with Jamie Dimon, but I'm hanging out with enough people that are high enough. Like, they're fucking evil sociopaths, a bunch of them.
Oh yeah. Like,
I'm sure you know a bunch.
I do.
Dude, those, like, a lot. That's the other thing that, like, a lot of Bitcoiners, they're earnest and they're optimistic in an awesome way. But I also, not all, but I find some of them like insanely naive to that.
Yes. To
how evil and how awful a certain type of person in power is. And what there is, like, literally one of the dudes you were talking about, they were like, no, they would never do this or that, because if enough people were in Bitcoin and they tried to ban it, it would crash the world economy. And I'm like, it might, but those motherfuckers will do that. They don't fucking care. Right? You're like, because I'm like, you're thinking from a logical, rational standpoint about and valuing life. They don't. There is a certain type of person in power that does not think in any way, shape, or form like that, and will burn the fucking world down if you let them.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to deny that, but again, even so, like this is our only shot. Like if we get the central bank digital currency or Bitcoin
I don't know if it's
succeeds.
our only shot. It is definitely one of the best shots that have
What else is
that
there?
I've ever seen.
What else is there?
So in 2000, when did Bitcoin come out? 08? 07?
White papers launched 08.
Okay.
Network launched January 3rd, 2009.
So I didn't need that technical of an answer, but thank you. In 06, if someone had been preaching whatever thing was the answer before Bitcoin, and in 06 they said, well, what other answer is there?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right? So I'm not saying Bitcoin's not the answer at all. It might be. And I totally am on board with the argument that it's one of the best answers we've seen in recorded history. Yeah, fuck yeah. I'm on board. Totally. Is it the only one? It's the only one maybe that we see right now.
I think it's the only scalable one. Obviously, you could try to
That we see right now? Totally, yes.
Yeah.
But hold on, have you heard about Solana?
Don't even get it.
No, I'm not even shitting on Solana. I just like making shitcoin jokes with Bitcoiners because they always get so funny. Like, you're even red. Look at. I should have said. Have you heard of Dogecoin? That would have been even better.
Yeah, I mean, this is all they're going to attack Bitcoin. They already are. The sociopaths are coming.
Well, it's already happened, and Bitcoin survived and thrived, and it's awesome.
You had China, one of the biggest. Like China's fucking stupid. Like if they really recognize the power of Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, no, they should have adopted it.
No, what they should. I mean,
Wait, but their sociopaths would never do that. In a
no,
million years.
but and they kicked out all the. They had 60%,
all the miners.
They had 60% of the network.
They could have controlled
They could have confiscated that equipment at the border.
Yeah.
Used it themselves and attacked the network.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's true.
And they did.
I didn't even think about that.
Yes, they could. They literally had the opportunity to completely destroy Bitcoin.
To actually destroy it.
Yes.
Oh, that's funny. You're right. They did.
And they didn't do it.
Yeah, because weren't 60% of miners in China for a while?
Yes.
Right, because they had all that cheap electricity and the dams and all that, or something, right?
Yes.
That's crazy.
And so all that hash rate came off the network last summer. Difficulty fell. Blocks came in slower, but Satoshi's design worked and the network recalibrated. All that hash rate moved, dispersed throughout the planet.
Right, of course.
And got plugged in.
No, the system worked the way it was designed. Totally.
So that's one example. And then two, so that's, you mentioned the dams and all that. So that's where I think the silver bullet is. There's a convergence going on right now, the Bitcoin mining industry and the energy sector that is undeniably beneficial to humanity. Like once you look at the ways in which Bitcoin miners create energy efficiencies throughout the whole supply chain of energy, from upstream oil and gas all the way down to the utilities that are providing electricity to grids.
Dude, I'm with you. Like, that's all right. But what happens when the sociopaths with guns show up to blow up the dams? And I mean, like, it sounds crazy, right?
So,
except, do you know, do you know anything about the history of just the United States military and intelligence services and the horrible shit they've done around the world? And I mean, listen, on one hand, I'm a flag waving American. On the other hand, I'm like, let's just be honest about some of the horrible fucking shit this government has done. I completely right? Like, you can have both opinions. Like, it's a paradox, but you can kind of hold both, right?
You have to hold both in your mind. You have to be aware of both. But back to the China example, that's essentially what happened. They essentially bombed the dams without bombing them.
Yeah.
Like that's what would have happened if they bombed the dams. The network would have reacted the same way. Well, maybe price falls a little bit further and all that. And so if the CIA shows up to all exchanges and they arrest Brian Armstrong, they arrest Jack Dorsey, the Winklevi twins, Jessica.
I know it doesn't kill the network. Of course not. I get it totally, but the only steelman argument, honestly, it sounds horrible. The steelman argument is probably, in a sense, we need to get enough powerful sociopaths that have root access to some strong militaries to be Bitcoiners, which in a sense is antithetical to Bitcoin, right? Like those type of people don't become Bitcoiners for a reason, because they want power over people, and the whole point of Bitcoin is not that.
Agreed.
Right?
Let's zoom out from Bitcoin though and just dissect our modern times right now. Like those sociopaths, people are losing faith in them by the day.
Totally.
Like what's going
100%.
on? Look what's going on in Canada. Look what's going on here. I'm in Texas. People flee to Florida, Texas. People are fleeing with their feet to go live in free areas. It seems like we're at a massive inflection point in human history where we are deciding what is our
at
future.
the convergence of many cycles.
Yes.
Totally.
Yes. You can talk 500-year cycles. You can talk 80-year cycles. You can talk 10-year cycles.
Death cycles, empire cycles. Totally.
Yes.
100% agree. It's why I called the piece Doomer Optimism, or the movement's called Doomer Optimism, because it's like, it could go either way, dude. Like, no, the sociopaths, all they're doing is doubling down, and they're going to keep doubling down because that is who and what they are, right? My favorite, dude, just look, this is so amazing. Look right now, this is such a good example of this. It's so mind-blowing. Canada right now, there's a huge convoy of like, whatever it is, 50,000 truckers converging on the capital.
Farmers just joined them.
Right. Okay. Do you know how you can go on the CBC, the Canadian Broadcast Channel. Do you know how they're covering this? This is Canada. We're not talking about a banana republic, right? We're not talking about like whatever. It's funny to call something else a banana republic now. Listen to go look on the Canadian Broadcast Channel. They're covering the convoy as truckers protesting against unsafe roads. I swear to God, it's on the website. Go look it up.
It's insane. Try to pull it up if you can find a car.
This sounds like an insane conspiracy theory. Go look it up right now.
Yeah, well,
Canadian broadcast channels saying truckers are protesting unsafe roads.
and Trudeau just got
COVID,
got into contact with somebody with COVID. He has to go into hiding for 10 days. So that's the CB or CBC.
Yeah, Canadian Broadcast Channel, I think is
so. But again, like, what do we have here? What we're learning right now is like
it's the same thing.
But independent media is like, people.
Those are the only ones that are actually getting any truth out.
Well,
yes.
and more people are flocking to that. So
Yes,
again,
totally.
information age, the ability.
People are waking up en masse. It's
Yes.
awesome.
Yes.
It's amazing and awesome. Bitcoin is a huge part of that. It's great. Yes, totally.
So I think what we need to do is embolden people out there who are typically used to bending the knee to the sociopaths. Like, hey, look, we have this information. We can prove that it's all bullshit. Like, here's a solution to get away from this bullshit and protect ourselves from this kleptocratic elite and get away from them. Can we change minds, convince minds, then give people the confidence, like, all right, maybe we should not be listening to the CBC, to CNN, to all these sociopaths.
You know, I mean, I get that, right? I get that argument.
Are we doomed for chaos?
No. Oh, we're definitely it's already here.
It's upon us, yes.
Right. And I think it's the only question is how much more chaos, how big, that's it. I don't know, man. You get this question a lot, right? I'm not entirely sure. Well, first off, like, sociopaths don't let you go, right? Like, you ever been in a toxic relationship or an abusive relationship? The abuser doesn't want, they don't just let you go. And I'm not even talking about like a serious extreme one. I'm talking about just like a friendship where someone's a user and it's like, keep calling, hey, let's do this. Like, that's a form of, right? Mm-hmm. And it gets worse and worse and worse as the more enmeshed you get. Man, I'm not going to tell you I have the answers because I don't. But I am not really sure that. So I'll tell you who I look to for guidance. One of the groups of people I look to for. Did you find it?
I think this might be the one.
Like, it was up this morning.
Protest convoys expected to cause disruption throughout Ottawa.
No. It was on.
We'll just.
It's on CBC. You can find it, I promise. The fact that it's not even the headline on CBC tells you something, though. Like, this is the only thing going on in Canada, and they're not even covering it. And when they do, I'm telling you, it was about Vancouver truck drivers protesting icy roads. So the people that I pay attention to are the ones for guidance. Some of them are the ones who just spent many decades living under some of the worst sociopaths the world's ever seen. Communist countries, right? Mm-hmm. So who dealt with that well? So like, Václav Havel, those sorts of people, right? And so he wrote a great book, not his most famous, I think it's called Power to the People. And it's basically about how to exist, not necessarily how to exist with them and how to deal with those sorts of people. And one of the main things he talks about is building parallel structures, right? So much of what people talk about is Bitcoin's an awesome example of a parallel structure, right? So much of what people talk about is fighting the bad guys, however they define the bad guys, right? I think anything you fight, you make stronger, right? And I mean that in a meta sense and almost in every literal sense. Actively fighting something is not the same as defending yourself, right? Like defending yourself, holding boundaries is great. That's a different thing. The more I think people focus, if we focus on how awful and evil the mainstream media is, let's say at how much they lie, that's right, all that's going to do, but that now they've set the frame, right? And the frame is, are we telling the truth or not? They've won. Whatever frame you're living in, whoever sets that frame has won. And so that's one of I've been in media 20 years, man. It was one of the first things I learned was, wait a minute, this doesn't seem, not only, I thought everyone kind of told the truth, not only do they not tell the truth, they're actively lying. Holy shit, this is all bullshit, right? Like what you figured out in finance, I figured out in media. And so the thing I've learned though, man, is that the only way out, if you fighting it is not a way out, fighting it it's almost like, the tar baby, right? You touch it and it pulls you in more, right? So what I've found instead, the better situation, is identify it, recognize it, sure, build your own thing.
Yep.
Build your own thing. 100%, and now attracting others to your thing, right? Helping them build their own thing is, you can either you build your own thing to suck other people in, and now you're just another one of them, or helping people build their own sovereignty. And Bitcoin is it is the thing for that, right? For money. But there's a lot more to it than money. Not to put money as an important part. I mean, exchange of energy, I get the whole thing, and it's awesome. But then like I think further, like what about emotionally? What about where does my food come from? Where does my water come from? Where does my energy come from? Physical, actual energy, electricity. Where do I live? Right? What am I building? It's why I bought a ranch, right? It's not like, I'm not trying to escape. I'm trying to build my own thing for me and my family, and then a community around, right? And then of course, to me, focusing on who you are and what you want and what your work is, and doing that is actually the way you win. Now, I know part of that can sound pie in the sky. I don't mean, oh yeah, we can just ignore the sociopaths and they'll leave us alone. No, that's not going to work either. No. That's unfortunately not going to work, right? So yeah, we got to recognize if someone else or some group of people is coming to take our shit. Like, yeah, and we're going to have to set boundaries, and we're going to have to protect ourselves in the best way possible. But at the same time, if that is your identity, then you are now in their frame and you have lost.
Yes. Bitcoiners are big on control the frame. Because in the mining industry, so I'm in the Bitcoin mining industry myself, and people are trying to set the frame on the mining industry. It uses too much energy.
Oh, which is such nonsense.
Yeah.
Like,
and so I hold up a mirror to them and go, no. Bitcoin makes us more energy efficient, and you are actually,
huge way.
You are actually anti-human, and
Yes.
you want us to use less energy, which has never led to a better outcome for humanity.
No.
So,
well, that's the fight over in environmentalism happened about 40, 50 years ago, and the anti-humans won.
They're not. They
In
did
mainstream
win.
environmentalism,
They did win. Yes.
They did, the ones who were about stewardship and conservation and harmony lost. The sociopaths went to the control side, to the anti-human side, and they won. The monkey wrenchers and all those people is horrible, man. Because like, think about this. Like, I own a ranch. I'm a hunter. I raise animals. I am and I actually grew up on, my grandmother had a beef cattle ranch. Like, I've been doing this my whole life, in some form or another, since I was very young. And, man, I couldn't care more about like I understand where our food comes from. I understand that garbage in is garbage out on a very, very core level with the literal physical molecules of our existence. I get that. And like there should be no greater ally of the environmental movement than the farmer and the rancher and everyone involved in that chain. Yet somehow they're seen as enemies. Because the sociopaths won on they co-opted the environmental movement, and now what you're starting to see, forget what global warming or not, right? That actually doesn't matter. What's coming is, look how it's playing out. Humans shouldn't be doing shit. You shouldn't be having kids. The core argument a lot of them make it is you shouldn't be alive.
Yeah, there's too many people on this planet.
It's a fucking death cult.
Yes.
Like, that's another great reason to focus on yourselves and build your own shit, is because if you leave the death cultists alone, they eventually turn on themselves.
Yes, they will eat themselves.
They do. If you don't provide them a target, almost always they eat themselves.
Yeah, and it's happening. It's starting to happen. I mean, we were seeing it with the clown world, with the crazy woke culture.
Yes.
Like, if you're not on the extreme end of the spectrum.
Oh yeah, and then it keeps going further and further and further,
yes.
right? Because it's a mental illness, and
yes.
they're going to keep going. So the more you pull out of it, if you engage in a fight with them, you've now given them an enemy, and you can be the bad guy. If they don't have an enemy, they turn on themselves, because that's what they're looking for. They're projecting their shit outwards.
Yeah, you're explaining.
It's basic projection,
yes.
on a basic psychological level.
Yeah, we're seeing. You're basically saying go gulch on them, right? Like just go.
No.
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 I liked Ayn Rand in high school too, right? And then I hate to be dismissive. I liked Ayn Rand in high school, and then I grew up.
Okay.
You know, and I don't mean. I was talking about this last night. I used to put in a bundle. Mm-hmm. Individualism, freedom, sovereignty. Yeah, those all cluster together. Now, I put sovereignty right next to community, and individualism, not bad, but just as far apart.
Okay.
Right? Pretty far. And freedom's probably in between, right? Sovereignty, freedom, individualism. Sovereignty to a lot of people means, or feels like man on an island, off the grid. That shit doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. Humans are network beings. Like, if you think you're off the grid, you're one fried coupler away from realizing, oh fuck, I'm real dependent on China, right? You know, like, and even no, I've got multiple redundant systems and backups for backups for backups, and it's like, where'd they all come from, right? So what are your kids gonna do? Yeah, okay. Right, yeah. You're on. So we are networked beings, and we know what happens when humans are raised without other humans around. They're not. They're like animals, yes. Right? It's horrible. But it's happened. So the idea that we exist without other people is just horrific, toxic nonsense.
Yeah, well.
The question is not, can you be without other people? The question is, who do you want to be and who do you want around you? What is your community? Right? Consciously choosing your community, choosing who you want to be, and then your community, attracting those people or joining that existing community or some combination. That's how I see sovereignty, is the ability for me to make myself the way I want to, and then be with the people who have aligned views that who all choose to be together, right? I don't see sovereignty and community. I think it's almost impossible to pull them apart. Right. Whereas, like, a lot of people see individual, it's a very nefarious way to co-opt freedom, right? So, it's individual into this, individual that. And it's like, man, but we all do exist in a system, man. You know, like, I can think I exist independently, but it's not true. It's just not. Now, does that? Of course, we can go down the whole philosophy rabbit hole with that, right? And where does the line draw? I get it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I'm not trying to go down that whole rabbit hole, but to me, right now, what I realize is, could not be more in on sovereignty, and the right there with it is community. Like, who am I going to be around? Who am I going to be? And who am I going to be around?
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason I moved to Austin, Texas, to be around people working on this mission to bring Bitcoin to fruition. And on the elevator ride up, so it seems like you're trying to build, at least you're building your safe haven within what you hope to be a larger community of like-minded individuals, and you doing this out around Dripping Springs.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a safe haven.
No?
No, I'll tell you why. I don't believe there are any more safe places. No, truly.
Has there ever been?
Probably not. Well, I'll tell you, there was a period, we just came out of it in America, I think for the last, let's call it 1946 to 2016. Let's just say roughly, right? And don't pick at my dates. In that period, if you were an American in America, you were probably as safe as any human has ever been anywhere. Maybe a Roman, you can talk about a Roman in Rome during certain periods of the Republic, or maybe even the Empire. There's a couple, we can go to, like, if you were a Mongol during the late stages of Genghis, or the stages of Ogadai, and I forget his son after that ruled, you were extremely safe. There have been brief, shining pockets of true safety in places, but they were all enforced by people.
Yeah.
I don't believe there are any more safe places. I believe there are only safe people. And so what I am trying to do is become a safe person and attract other safe people. We are in a place, and that place is definitely going to be safer than most places. I'm not foolish enough to be like, oh, my place is totally safe. No, nothing's totally safe. That just doesn't exist.
That's a dark view of the world.
No, I think it's just realistic, man.
Yeah?
No, it's not. I don't know how. It's sort of like I don't think there's any way for light to exist without dark.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. I don't think there's any way for safety to exist without risk. Risk in and of itself does not, I don't feel it is good or bad, evil or what. It kind of is what it is, right? Some risks are acceptable, some aren't, and they vary per person, I mean, I know some people who are like, you're only an hour away from a major blue city. That's nowhere near far enough. It's like, all right, well, if the refugees start pouring out, then they're going to hit me first, or whatever. So, seriously, they're on the continuum of preparation. There are people way further.
Well, I think it's hilarious that people shit on Austin. Again, coming from Philadelphia, New York, Chicago.
Right.
People are like, oh, you're going to Austin? It's a shit lib city. I come down here, I'm like, compared to those three, and this is.
Those are Texans that say that, because it is a shit lib city to us now.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Texans are like, oh, what are you doing in Austin? Like, have you ever lived in the Northeast?
Well, you got to remember. So I got here 13 years ago. When I got to Austin, it was, quote, a blue city. It was such a great city because it had all the benefits of a blue city, but was run by with a red ethic. So it kind of had the benefits, all the responsibility, everything worked. It was great, but then you had, culture and freedom and individuation. It was a perfect mix. And it is tipped over in the last, really about 6 months before COVID, and COVID only accelerated it. This specific administration that came in are the worst kind of woke blue types. I'm old enough to remember when the bad guys, and I'm talking about from a sovereign, a human-loving perspective, the bad guys were on the right.
Yeah.
Dude, when I first started writing my books that you loved, almost all of my critics were the sort of stereotypical fundamentalist Christian shame-based, how dare you talk about sex publicly types. Those motherfuckers don't even exist anymore.
Right.
Like, that energy has all shifted. They're all now on the left, and it's all the woke. But it's the same energy. It is the same fucking energy. It is deeply internalized shame that is projected outwards. Whether it's coming through Christianity or coming through critical race theory, it operates the same.
Yeah.
Like, I am 46 and I've literally seen the arrows go from one side to 180 degrees on the other, but the same arrow coming from the same basic type of person. It's nuts, man.
It's really weird. It's funny that meme's been going around of the two cars driving past each other with different bumper stickers. It's like in the 70s, liberal was like anti-vax.
Yes, totally.
Down
Yeah.
with the corporations and big pharma. And
Right.
this one's like, take your vax, like trust the science. It's like, what the hell happened? What the hell happened to the hippies? They completely turned into what they hated.
I know. And now the fucking ranchers are like, I ain't taking that death metal injection and like, and keep your hands off of me. And oh, dude, now it's like totally switched.
It's weird. Why is this happening?
Because some types of people believe in sovereignty in humans, and some people have succumbed to shame.
Right?
That is a simplistic explanation,
I think
there's a lot of truth there.
simplistic, but and there is a ton of truth in it. And I think it reverts back to something we were talking about earlier, which is like the anti-humans won. They've really driven.
In academia, they won.
Yes.
That's what woke is. Wokeism is a death cult personified. It is, and it's such a sneaky death cult. It's so well structured in terms of a medic cult. I know so many people who are like, we're totally aligned, sovereignty. And in summer of 2020, they could not have been marching harder in the woke Olympics, right? Because I want to be a good person. This is their thought process. I want to be a good person, and if I'm a good person, I'm saying these things and I'm believing these things. It captured their minds.
I have a black square on my Instagram.
No, right, exactly, right.
That one was the most infuriating.
Well, but it's easy to make fun of like some soccer mom who like doesn't have any black friends and lives in the suburbs and put up. I'm talking about people who actually do shit in their lives. I'm talking about people who do care, right? Like it fooled them too at the beginning. Like that's how powerful that mimetic virus was.
And it's cascading into like a massive sunk cost fallacy where a mass amount of people do not want to admit to themselves that they were duped.
Dude, I mean, it's crazy now. Masking has become a religion for some people, dude. Truly. Like not masking and it's funny. 3 years ago, the anti-vaxxers were the crazy religious people, and now the vaccinate everything every week people are the lunatic religion. Like it's switched sides now.
Well, I mean, and this is, I go back and forth. I have a Marty Jones aspect. People think I get as crazy as Alex Jones, but like the pushing forward with the fourth booster, taking in all the information that we have is leading me to believe there's some like nefarious intent behind it.
So many people.
I don't want to be there.
So many.
It's hard
people,
not to believe that.
So many people that I know. When I was like, guys, this is last year and late 2020. I'm like, this is a scam. This is something's going on. I'm not going to pretend I can tell you exactly what it is or who the players are. Something is going on. Just because I know media. I know media so well. I knew not in March, but like I said in the article, by May of 2020, I knew it was a scam. Right? Something somewhere was a scam, and then it just got worse and worse and worse as time went on. And everyone who knows media knew. Just like all the people I know who really know public or health and like all the medical stuff, they're like, what the fuck? None of this makes sense from an actual medical perspective, right?
Vaccinating during a pandemic breakout.
So anyway, so a lot of people who like, I had no idea how many people not only didn't think for themselves, literally just took the opinions that were assigned to them from their TV. I thought I knew that a lot of people did that. Let's say if I thought 50% of people did that, turns out it was like 90. And I had no idea how many people literally just took their opinions from NPR, CNN, or Fox News, whatever. It's not like it's only one side. Like, and like, okay, that's what they say. And then blah, blah. I'm like, I'd be looking at them like, you're not even human right now. You don't think this. My favorite question I started asking people, and I can't tell you how many people I mentally broke with this or got them out of their bullshit. No, seriously. Someone would be like, oh, well, blah, 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 whatever we're talking about. And I'm like, okay, so I get your point. Let me ask you a question. What evidence would you have to see that would change your mind? Oh, dude. And then I would just stay on, no. I'm not saying it's true. I'm not arguing this is going to happen. Pro-vax, it doesn't matter. Anti-vax, I don't care. Tell me what evidence, so I can understand your evidence better. I always frame it as understanding your evidence, right? So tell me what evidence that if existed, right? And I'm not saying it will, but if it did, that you would cause you to change your mind. So like you ask a true evolutionary biologist this, they'll give you, well, if we found a verified rabbit skeleton in the Triassic, layer, we'd know for sure evolution was wrong or whatever, right? Like any real scientist can tell you immediately what would negate. People, you get them enough and get through one or two things they remember from Vox or whatever, and they break mentally because they realize that they haven't, unconsciously realized they didn't reason themselves into any of these positions. They're just repeating bullshit they heard. And now the question is, are they going to admit it to themselves or not?
Yeah.
And so they stuttering, and they either get angry or some of them actually will figure it out. Usually they'd figure it out later and come back, right? And be like, fuck yeah. And then they start to wake up, even though they don't even know, but they start to wake up out of that.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest hurdle we need to get over as a society right now with this COVID shit is get out of the sunk cost fallacy. Man,
it's easy to say that.
I know.
That's like being skinny and being like, hey, fat person, just lose weight. Don't eat more. Like there's a whole, I'll tell you, if you really want to help people get out of the sunk cost, if you approach them fighting, you're going to embed them more in what they believe.
Yes.
Right? That's why, and it's not like I'm some genius who came up with this. Like, it's not that hard if you understand persuasion and mimetics and the way brains work. If you actually I ask people these questions from a place of sincerity and care. And I always, whatever they say, I'm like, yeah, no, I get your point. I get it. There's a logic to it. It makes sense. I see why you believe it. I'm not saying anything's going to contradict it, but just explain to me so I understand the landscape of the evidence really well. What evidence would cause you to change your belief? If it existed, just if. Play with me, right? Because they have to get themselves out of that position. You cannot do it for them. It just that is one of the major myths. Like anyone who's in the broadest the therapy movement, any good therapist will tell you you cannot do your patient's work for you. Same thing. All you can do is help them see. It's up to them if they want to look, man.
Yeah, and this is for a lot of things, right? And right now we're talking COVID specifically. So for me, when I figured out the monetary system was fucked up and the financial system was fucked up, I was like, all right, you're describing media. You found out media was fucked up, but once you see something that you took for granted for your whole life. Yeah. Is fucked up.
Wait, you mean the dollar's not backed by anything? Wait, it's backed by debt? Yeah. Wait, what? Hold on. That's my favorite. People like, no, the American dollar's not backed by anything. I'm like, no, you're wrong. That's where you're wrong. It's backed by debt.
Backed by future production.
It's backed by the U.S. government's ability to bring a gun to your house and take your shit if you don't pay taxes. Yeah. Debt.
Yes.
And they're like, what? No, that they don't, like, everyone in finance knows it.
I swear 7 out of 10 people you ask on the street, like man on the street questions, will tell you that it's backed by gold still.
Yeah, that was true in 1968.
1971. What the fuck happened in 1971?
Richard Nixon.
But it comes down to all, like, everything is fucked up. The money's fucked up. The response to the pandemic's fucked up. Food's fucked up. That's the other thing, too. Common sense reaction to this, like, hey, maybe you should get healthy instead of injecting yourself with four shots is never.
Being healthy doesn't make money for sociopaths in charge.
No. Like, are the sociopaths always going to win? Like, are we at peak sociopath right now?
Fuck, what a great question. Holy fuck, hold on. The sociopaths always going to win. I'll tell you what.
Like, does the information age allow us to highlight?
That is actually, you might have been asking that like glibly, but that's such a deep, deep question. The best answer I can give you is they're always going to win unless people stand up and say no. The only way they don't win is if you decide you're going to win. Mm-hmm. Right? And winning, and I actually redefine winning. Sociopaths win because they get you to play their game. When you stop playing their game and you play your game, whatever your game is, right? Mm-hmm. That's when you're able to win. You can never win their game because they set it up. And of course they're going to set it up so that the house wins. It's like going to Vegas and expecting to beat the house. Some people do, but on net, the gamblers lose.
The casinos are still up and running, been profitable for many, many decades.
Many billionaires printed off of casinos, right? So, shit, dude. I could have gone to work at Goldman Sachs and been super fucking rich and been one of those horrible fucking sociopaths, and I probably would have been a high-level sociopath. Probably not one of the highest, but I'd have been one of the lackeys of one of the highest, and no doubt, man, I could have gone that route. You could have too. You were in that funnel.
Yes.
So was I.
Well, that gets into an interesting thing. Like, do sociopaths rise to power because of the way the incentive structure of the systems that they manipulate?
That they created or took over and co-opted.
Yes.
Dude, I was talking about this yesterday. Jordan Peterson's in town, right? And so I know him and Michaela pretty well. And so we were talking about this. And like, man, I love Jordan to death. He's such a great dude in so many ways. But it has been very painful. The discussions I've been like, dude, when are you going to realize that all these institutions that you came up with and that you loved and that may have been great for you, pretty much they're all infiltrated and corrupted and broken. And finally he's like, yeah, I think you're right. I'm like, yeah, Jordan. Yeah, Jordan.
It seems
I've been trying to tell you this and me and a lot of other people for quite a while, dude. And it's hard for him because, he's older, right? And so he was telling me, like, when he was at McGill, it was like a great place to be a psych grad. So he had great professors. Like, yeah, not all of them taught well, but like the system worked for him there. And then he got to Harvard and he's like, man, I had such great peers. And so it worked. And so it's like, if the system works for you, of course you think the system works. Obviously, right? And dude, it's so fun. I have my CEO of my company, the guy who took over for me and who's a total badass, is the reason the company is good, is half black, half white, and his dad was like an actual like beat women, sell their bodies pimp, like a pimp, and his mom was white, one of his dad's hoes. Like seriously, I know, right? And so like
not mean to laugh at that.
He's seen. No, it's like you have to laugh or you cry because it's like horrific. He's seen the true underside of America. Grew up on welfare, like the worst shit ever, and pulled himself out, man. And it's funny. We talk about this. He goes, man. He goes, I'm not glad that all this shit's happening. He's like, but it's fucking fun to watch a lot of people wake up and realize what some of us have seen for 50 years.
Yeah.
Which is, shit's been fucked up for a long time. It just has not been evenly distributed at all in any way, shape, or form.
And this is something that really, like my time in college was really impactful in the future trajectory of my life. Like, I studied economics. Also, coming from the Northeast, I played lacrosse, and I helped start an inner-city lacrosse program in Chicago on the West Side.
So what you're saying is you're really, really fucking privileged.
Yeah.
I had to make the joke.
Can't deny it, but no, I worked hard. My parents worked. My parents own a coffee shop. They're not like crazy. But
I'm fucking with you.
Yeah.
Dude. I'm totally fucking with
you. I think a lot of the problems that persist throughout America, particularly today, stem from the dissolution of the nuclear family. And that started in inner cities.
Right, so take a step back. Why do you think nuclear family? Why do you think that happened? You said that you're picking a pretty arbitrary... I don't disagree, but you're picking an arbitrary starting... It's not like the nuclear family just decided to start disintegrating.
No, I think there was a concerted effort to replace the father with the state. You push both parents into...
There you go, yeah.
You push both parents into the workforce, and you create an incentive system where the father doesn't have to be around, right? And love it or hate it, parents are pretty fucking important. Each one has their role. And father figure. That's the thing I noticed. They're teaching lacrosse to young boys that are typically being raised by their aunts or their grandmothers, and you could tell they had this second, third, fourth grade had this void.
Me?
Yeah.
My dad was gone.
Really?
From the time I was a year old. Oh yeah. I mean,
you're one of the few to make it out for yourself, right?
Yeah, but look at the road I took. It was rough, man.
Yeah.
I turned it into something that produced a lot of enjoyment and laughter for a lot of people. How old are you now? 32?
30.
30. Okay. When's the last time? I'm asking a curiosity, not like any other weird way. When's the last time you read "I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell"?
Well, it was like early 20s.
Okay, all right. So you have one kid, right? Another on the way?
Yes.
Okay. So you're a totally different dude now than when you read the book, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay. I just did this. I just went back and read "I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell" for the first time since I was 32, I think, or 31.
Mm-hmm.
About your age now. Now, you seem way more mature. Like I married a woman 10 years younger than I am, and we're about the same emotional maturity. Like I'm 46, and emotionally, I feel like about a 36 to 38 in terms of emotional maturity. Mm-hmm. Smart, yeah, I'm off the fucking charts. But emotional maturities, I've always been very slow. Right?
You're lagging.
I'm lagging, definitely lagging. Right. I just read the book again. Of course, there are parts that are brilliantly hilarious. Whatever, and I knew it was there when I wrote it. But it wasn't conscious, and I wasn't trying to put this in. Do you know the overwhelming feeling I got reading that book now? And I bet you would see it if you read it now. I bet it would come through in a way you didn't see at all when you were reading it first.
What could have been if I wasn't doing this? Or?
No. Dude, I'm not ashamed at all of what happened, man. I turned a lot of my pain into great art. Mm-hmm. Like that's I'm not ashamed in any way, shape, or form. There's definitely things I did that were wrong that I definitely regret doing. Actions, not the books at all. Fuck no, I'm not ashamed of that. I'm proud of that.
Yes,
of the accomplishment of the books and all. Fuck yes, that's not what I'm talking about at all.
I wish there was somebody there to tell me I was fucking up. No.
Mm-mm.
What is it?
The overwhelming emotion I had reading it now was deep grief and sadness for that kid because he was so fucking lost and he had no idea. Mm-hmm. He had no fucking idea how fucked up and how lost he was. And he was in so much pain, and he was trying to deal with his pain through partying and whatever, which was the only way he knew how. And it wasn't dealing with any of his pain at all. But I felt so sad for him, not in a pity way. Just like, it's like, oh man, like all of the emotions I've had to deal with over the last 10 years, right? Like in my healing process and my therapy process, I can see them all in the books. And I had no fucking idea when I was writing. None. But it was there.
Yeah.
None.
Well, talking about like deep, I mean, your formative years, like so what do you think why do you have this grief? Do you think that person had an subconscious, unconscious almost yearning for
you without knowing it, you brought it up. So I think I'm a classic 80s, 90s kid. Like, it's easy to look at me like, privilege or whatever. Man, I'm the opposite of privilege in a lot of ways. And I'm not trying to get in a victim Olympics here, right? the opposite of that. But I want to point out, it's easy to look at someone from the outside and say that, right? But until you know their struggle, and I think everyone has a serious struggle, I'd be very careful, not that you use that word, but I use that word, but I'd be very careful throwing anything like that around. I had an extremely difficult childhood for the exact reason you talked about. Totally broken home. Dad left at a year. I think maybe I was a year and a half. Both my parents were totally fucked up. And they're not horrible people, right? No one beat me. No one put anything on my butt. There was no horrible sexual. No, I mean, like that's all horrible abuse, and that's real. But the narrative for that abuse is pretty well established in our society. Thank God, because there used to be no narrative for it. So that's a major improvement. But I'll tell you what's coming behind that right now, because I'm kind of on the vanguard of this with psychedelic therapy and with some other stuff. What's coming behind that is the realization, and everyone in psychology knows this. And not many people are willing to talk about it because it's one of those things where it's like, oh, fuck, right? Like the housing crisis, like the people who saw it coming were like, oh no, right? The worst, you can actually look at the studies. There's a famous study about this, the Adverse Childhood Effects Study, the ACE study, very famous. You can take the ACE quiz and see your childhood trauma. Basically a 1 to 10 score. I scored a 10 out of 10, which is like kind of breathtaking. It shocked even me. ACE study and a bunch of others. the trauma that actually has the most detrimental long-term health and life effects on a child is relational trauma, neglect and abandonment. When they started the study, the psychologists thought for sure physical and sexual abuse would show up the worst, and it was bad, no doubt, right? But the worst shit was actually not when you're teasing it out. The worst life effects were correlated most strongly with relational trauma. And so like I think that is the poison that is moving through society right now, man. And I was suffering it. My mom, both of my parents were boomers, iconic baby boom. My parents met at one of George Young's Coke parties in Manhattan Beach. Seriously, the movie Blow, like that dude, right? You know, he talks about like he lived in Manhattan Beach and the Pan Am flight attendant. My mom was a Pan Am flight attendant, and my dad was a stockbroker in LA. And they met at one of his parties, right? Or it was either him or one of his cronies, who knows? But it was that scene in LA, right? And so they're iconic baby boomers, totally emotionally broken. Like not evil people at all. They did the best they could, but the best they could was a disaster. They shouldn't have had a kid. They didn't. My dad. I'll be straight about it. It's fine. My dad didn't want. My mom got pregnant through birth control. My dad didn't want her to have me. She decided she was going to. He left after I showed up. My mom was completely emotionally unequipped to have a child. She's still a child. She had a pretty emotionally, verbally abusive mother. I know because my grandmother was like that and horrible. So like she basically just passed that shit down to me. Did the same thing to me her mother did to her, except not quite as bad actually. So she was an improvement, honestly, but totally emotionally unavailable. So as a young kid, I had my dad not around. My mother was a flight attendant for Pan Am. She would leave me with babysitters for like 2 weeks at a time. And dude, and she actually left me with decent people, right? Which is like, it's not like it's like, oh, I was, in some horrific satanic child pedo ring. No, none of that horrible shit. Thank God. It was like just, I was a little kid. I mean, you have a little kid, right?
Yes.
What happens when your little kid finds himself or herself alone for like 10 minutes?
Freak out,
right?
We have to sneak out the door.
Welcome to my whole childhood. Yeah. Right? And so you asked, it's a great question. Where's the grief come from? Dude, I had such an incredibly lonely childhood on a deep core emotional level. And talk therapy for years never got me into that. I intellectually recognized it. I never felt any of that, right? All of that trauma was stored in my body, all that emotion. I'm not talking metaphorically. If you don't understand how trauma stores in the body, there's a great book called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. He's a BU researcher. He's one of the leading researchers in trauma. He's like kind of like the guy in trauma. Him and another guy, Peter Levine. Just go read that book. It explains the whole thing. And so anyway, so I couldn't get to it until I did MDMA therapy. And that's what cracked me open, man. Like the first time, like Molly, right? Like ecstasy.
That's your pinned tweet right now.
It is. Yeah. I wrote a piece about the first 2 MDMA therapy sessions I did. Dude, everything I have good in my life right now, I have good because I decided to go on a healing journey and because I did psychedelic therapy and the work around it. Like a lot of people like they'll meet me like, I want to have what you have. Like, I just take MDMA, everything's great. I'm like, no, dude, this is not a magic pill. It's the opposite of a magic pill. It is a Pandora's box. It opens up all the shit you're hiding from, and then you got to deal with it. And so it's like, I always tell people, man, with the most sincerity I can, do not do this unless you are ready to go through hell. Because whatever hell is inside of you that you have been running from, and it doesn't matter. If you had the tiniest little trauma and I had the worst ever, it doesn't matter because yours, trauma to yours is just as bad as mine is to mine. So there's really no comparison, right? Whatever you have that you're hiding from, it's going to bring it up.
You got to be ready to confront it too.
You got to be ready. If you walk down that, if you're not ready, cool. Just don't walk down the path.
Yeah. Like you just said, the degree of trauma may differ, but you will confront. Like I had a very similar experience with mushrooms. I took psilocybin and
I've had quite a few mushroom therapy sessions.
Since you're opening up with your story, me too. Like my father was around, my parents were around. They're great, incredible parents, and again, like being 17, part of my anger going into the great financial crisis. My dad was in the financial world too. He's an asset manager, like selling funds and stuff. And I just saw him time and time again. We moved to South Carolina in 2001. We get down there and you have that mini recession after .com boom. It's laid off like 6 months after we go down. We moved down there and we get back up to the Philly area in 2008, not too long after that. It seemed like a while at that point in time, but now looking back, like 5-6 years isn't that long. We had the great financial crisis, similar thing. Beats the shit out of him again, goes to college, and I just watched it beat the fuck out of him. And watching that happen to him for me, and then like we went through leaps and bounds. We were well off, and then we would had hard times, and one of those hard times we hit was when I was at college, and I was like 19, 21, like realizing, oh shit, like. And he worked his ass off to make sure like I didn't have to take out loans. And then
you got to take out loans.
Junior year, I was like, oh, you got to take out. I'm like, oh, what the fuck? And like I took things for granted. For me, what shrooms did is like realize like I didn't have any empathy for my parents and realize what the struggle they went through. They had me when they were 21.
Oh,
they got pregnant.
That's rough.
They both went to Temple University. My mom had me shortly after they graduated. And then they had my brother 11 months after me. And so 21, 22, 2 kids. And they fucking worked their asses off through life, and I never appreciated that. So for me, well,
that's cool that you did though. That you got connected with that. Did you talk to them about it?
I've talked to my dad about it, and my mom. Yes, no, my dad and I'll never forget in Chicago one St. Patty's Day he came out, and we were at the bar, and I like had that conversation with him. I was like, "Fuck, man, I never realized how much you're kicking your own ass to give us what you gave us." Like, I never
that's super cool.
It. Yeah, like.
Yeah.
So
what's funny, man? Like a lot of people who have great parents still have trauma and feel guilty. It's like I can't if I have some sort of childhood trauma or issue, it means I had bad parents. No, it doesn't. Co-founder of Scribe with me, this guy Zach Oberon, great dude, amazing. I met his parents. His parents are like the kind of parents you design in your dream and don't think exist, right? He still has issues. It doesn't mean they're bad, right? Like your trauma is yours. Mine is mine. And like, all we can do is play the hand that we're dealt, you know? That's fucking awesome. You did that though, man.
Yeah, no, I mean.
How did your dad react?
He cried. It was like, you could tell.
Like good cry? Angry cry? Like,
no, good cry. Like, thank you for recognizing it. Yeah. You're thankful.
So he never said anything about this to you?
No. Yeah,
so he just like
I come from an Irish Catholic family. You're an Irish Catholic. You suppress.
Philly. I don't even know why I didn't think about this.
It's a big suppression culture.
That's Catholic. It's a shame-based culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's life's weird, man. If you have good parents, that's the thing. You can't recognize. For me, at least, you don't recognize that you're a little dickhead when you're growing up. Like.
Yeah, some people are. I probably was in a lot of ways, no doubt. It's I have the fourth is literally on the way this week. So I'm gonna call it 4 kids. My oldest is 7. He's a boy, and it's so funny. You know, like every parent does a parental curse. I hope you have a kid just like you when they get angry. And I remember even as a kid thinking, bitch, I hope I do too, because I'll do a better job than you did. You're fucking terrible. I swear to God. I said that to my mom. She got angry. And I'm not trying to say I'm a perfect dad or even a great dad, but I have definitely done a way better fucking job. I don't think it's that hard to actually be a good parent. You really just have to do one thing. And there's so many things around parenting can feel like a horrible struggle. Money, yeah, of course, man. I'm not trying to. The one thing though, if you get right, you're going to be a good parent. You just have to unconditionally love your child. And then make sure they actually feel that. If you do that, man, some of the healthiest people I know were raised in fucking squalor who had parents who did that. And they're like, man, I had the best childhood ever. I didn't know how poor we were.
Yeah.
I had no idea that we were barely able to eat and that I actually should have had a traumatic, horrible childhood because of the poverty. My parents loved me so much and I felt so valued and treasured. Like... And they're all like the happiest, best people I know, man.
Yeah. No,
if you just get that right. And I'm not saying that's easy, man, because I'll take my mom as an example. If you don't love yourself, how are you going to love a kid? Like, you can't give away what you don't have, you know? So it's like, I used to be really resentful towards her because of how bad of a parent she was. And she was objectively bad. And then during one of my medicine sessions, I realized, oh, fuck. She got it worse than I did from her mom. How the fuck would she even know? Yeah, you can make the argument, well, fuck, go heal your shit. Well, she didn't. And so it's like, all right, well, I mean, I can be mad at her if I want, or I can let that anger go. I can be sad and have compassion for her, and then let I go on with my life, right? Mm-hmm. Now, what's funny though, she's still alive. And so a lot of people assume, oh, but if I forgive her, then I have to let her back, because she hasn't changed at all. She's still a mess, right? And I mean that with all compassion, but it's just the truth. And like, no, I can hold boundaries. Like the people in my life are all ones that I have healthy interactions with. Not possible for her to have a healthy interaction with me now, so she's not in my life. Doesn't mean I've dealt with all of my emotions around her. I've forgiven her truly for what I went through as a kid, and I understand why. I'm like, but she's not in my life though, man. Like that's what you can have a healthy boundary, but also like deal with shit, you know?
Yes, and that's like setting that boundary is important, because on the other side of that, if that person doesn't realize, this is another, going back to my dad giving great lessons, is one of his best. He's instilled in my brother, sister, and I, is you're in control of your own happiness. Like,
fuck yes.
Nobody controls your happiness. Like, you have to self-actualize your happiness.
How has your all's relationship changed since you kind of did that? You had that conversation with him, just him.
I mean, we have a great relationship. We always have. Like, we used to like work together.
Yeah. It was good, but now is it like way better? Or you guys, or what?
I mean, we talk. Yeah, we talk every day.
Oh, so you have that kind of relationship?
Yeah, like my dad and I are like, my dad. I'm very close to my parents. So are my brother and sister.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's what I hope my kids. I mean, we're like that now because they're little kids, but as they get older, like that's what I hope. Like, you know, like, dude. So many ideas in our society are so stupid. Like, who came up with the idea that, oh, you get 18, you have to leave? Man, I hope they fucking stay in my house as long as they want. Like, and when they, if they want to go travel the world, something cool, of course, I'm on board. If they want to just live in the house for a bunch of years into their 20s or 30s, I'm in. If they find, a wife or husband, because I have daughters, cool, great. Build your house next to ours.
Yeah,
like if you want, I'd love that.
That's so right now we got my sister living with me. My brother moved to Austin as well, and we're trying to convince our parents to come down. We're like, all right, get down here. I would love to buy a ranch and do exactly what you just said.
I would live in a dumpster over Philly. I would live in a dumpster in Camden over Philly. No, I'm kidding.
That's the thing. It pains me that Philly's in the state it is. Philly's the bastion of what this country stands for. Is where like the ideals
it used to be.
It used to be, yes.
Yes, before any of us were alive.
And it's so crazy how it's swung to the complete opposite.
Dude, if you buy a ranch, buy out in Dripping. I'm telling you, man. We're building a school there. Like, we got all kinds. Like, we started our own school 2 years ago, and now we got our own land for it. It's going, like, I'm telling you.
So let's get into it. You're building a citadel out there, right?
No. The citadel, the city idea, the town idea is not in Dripping. Mm-hmm. Dripping is, it's like, I don't know much, like 50 something acres. It's not that much for Texas. That's nothing, right? Okay. But we have a community out there. People. There was already a really good, strong community there, so it's not like I made Dripping. There was a great community out there. That's why I picked it, right? But then since me and a couple other people I know who are somewhat high profile have moved out there, and so there's like another almost layer on top of that or with that in bed. It's becoming a really, really good community of people out there that are all pretty like-minded. There's a lot of them are Bitcoiners. There's one, I don't know if he wants me to put it out there, but one guy, I don't know the Bitcoin space that well. I'm pretty sure I know he has a huge YouTube channel and he has a huge following. I think in Bitcoin is the primary thing. He just came out there. A couple of others, good friends of mine. It's good, man. Yeah, it's a good spot. Not the only spot, but a good spot.
Well, I think you're proving that you can become sovereign, right? Like, you can get out of the malaise of modernity.
We're as sovereign as we can be right now in America.
Well, but you have a lot, like, let's get into your blog post. Like, you have a view of where the world's going over the next 12 years, 3 to 12 years. Yep. And you're preparing, not prepping. You're preparing.
Well, it's different. Prepping is like just being a paranoid hoarder, right? Preparing is how do I handle uncertainty and chaos coming, but still live a great life, and, and which is basically just being sovereign in core areas: food, water, energy, things like that.
Yes, and Texas is a great place to do all that.
It is maybe the best place in the world right now. Maybe.
I think so.
I agree. I agree. That's why I'm here. But we'll see.
Fuck, man. Let me check the timer because I know we've got plenty of time. I've got an hour. I thought this conversation is going great. How are you? Are you?
Sorry, my wife, because she's literally due this week. I'm with the interview. Great, it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I was like, how are you? Is your wife? She's good.
Oh yeah, no, the baby's not coming. Dude, trust me, I'd be moving. Like, sorry guys, I'm out. Gotta go have baby, because we do home birth too. So I gotta get home.
Can you help me convince my wife to do that?
All right, so I'm not messing with you. Our midwife in Austin is the best. Her name is Monica Stone.
Okay.
She wrote a book on midwifery. My company, I actually helped. She was so amazing. Our first, my wife is an NP. Right, she runs her own medical practice called Ultra Personal Healthcare. It's a primary care, and so she when she got pregnant, she kind of handled everything, and she's like, we're doing home birth, and I'm like, what kind of witchcraft nonsense is that? And she's like, stop it. She's like, I'm like, yeah, it's your body and you know medicine, but that just seems crazy to me. And she's like, just watch this documentary. And remember Ricky Lake?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. You're gonna
daytime talk show host.
So she pulls up a documentary for me to watch. Like, honestly, like I'm a little fucking child, right? Pulls up, but she's fucking smart. She knows her shit. She pulls up a documentary to watch, and it's Ricky Lake. And I'm like, woman, I'm like, you want the front or the back? You asked me to watch a Ricky Lake documentary, and she's like, shut up and watch this. Turns out it's an amazing documentary. It's called The Business of Being Born. Mm-hmm. Have your wife watch that. Ask her to watch it, right? And then reach out to me. I'll put you in contact, or either with my wife or with Monica, who's the midwife in town. Dude, this woman is she's like a mystic. I don't know how to explain it, but we've had 3 home births, and they're honestly the most amazing, incredible experiences, soul-changing, transformative. Like, if I talk any more about it, you're gonna think I'm like a woo-woo kook. Mm-hmm. But dude, like the most woo-woo kook shit you can imagine, just it's true. It's after 3. I'm stuttering because I don't know how to even explain it. It's so foreign, but so amazing.
Well, having had one in the hospital, that experience alone, even doing it in the hospital,
seems horrible. I actually have never done a hospital birth, clearly, but
yes, it is weird. The hospitals are terrible places.
Oh, dude, it's where you go to die. Everyone in medicine tells you stay out of the hospital if you can.
It's there. I mean, lights, blinking.
Oh, dude, it's
sleeping.
anti-human.
It
is the embodiment of technocratic sociopathy.
Elaborate on that, please. Like because I really hope people come away from this episode with not only what we discussed before this, but this as well. Like all that, cause I forget when my son was born, or we had a situation where my wife had to go to the hospital over the summer, and we were just waiting there. And it's just when you're waiting in a hospital bed, and you're in Cape May, New Jersey, and there's just bleeping and people talking and people crying, and you're going through your own thing, and it's a miserable experience.
All right, so I don't want to be the spokesman for why standard Western allopathic medicine is bankrupt. I mean, like more morally, philosophically bankrupt. I'm not the best spokesman for that. There's a lot of better people who are ringing that bell, and they're right about it. But look, just ask yourself, when was the last time you went to the doctor's office and you felt better coming out in terms socially, spiritually, emotionally, relationally, socially? Like, no, of course not, man.
Don't go to the doctor anymore.
Well, you know why? Because most of them are horrible. It's my wife is a nurse practitioner, which is like they're like the nurse, the fancy nurse that can like write prescriptions and stuff. They're basically like a doctor. And she started her own medical practice because of this, because like everyone hates the medical system. It's so inhuman. It's so dehumanizing. And so her entire practice, it's monthly subscription. You can text providers all day, every day, whatever you need on text, video, no wait appointments. When you make a 10 o'clock appointment, you know what time your appointment starts?
10 o'clock.
Who would have thought? Right? They actually listen to you. They take an hour, if you need it, talk to you. Well, let's try this. It's like, imagine if someone, they think about the whole, like it's preventative care instead of like, oh, you're sick, take a pill. It's like, how do we stop you from getting sick again?
Well, that's what has turned me away from modern medicine is the incentive structure. Like, I haven't been in the doctor in a while, but since I lived in New York, which is over 2.5 years ago now at this point, when I did have to go, it was always like, all right, what are you trying to sell me? What are you trying to push on me? Like,
right. Or you don't care.
Yes.
Right. Either I'm pushing this or I don't care.
Yeah. It's like, what is your incentive? Like, are you getting paid to tell me to take something? Like,
that just happened with me at a dentist. They're like, oh yeah, we're going to use this cool machine to clean your teeth. It's only $2,000. I'm like,
the fuck?
What? Look, no. Oh, but you need it. No, I don't need it. Get out of here. Just fuck off.
Yeah. It's the upselling. I got that.
Upselling healthcare. Can you imagine? Yes, because that's the entire medical system. I mean, like, you want the best argument about why medicine is horrible. Ask yourself, do you like the online ad system? Okay, the U.S. medical system is basically run by the same types of people.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's
how do we extract as much money as possible out of this person? Which, from an ad system, I'm like, all right, there's a logic to where that can actually on net produce good. I'm not saying I agree with it, but it's like, yeah, if you get to know me and track and then you're actually showing me relevant ads, I'm not saying I believe it, but there's at least a logic there. In medicine, it is just extractive. In medicine, you get a situation where the CEO of Pfizer sits on the board of Reuters and then also sponsors CNN.
Brought to you by Pfizer. And then they're like, go take your
What kind of idiot do you have to be to not realize that's a major fucking problem? Regardless of what, I'm as pro-science as it gets.
Don't fall to like the pro science. Like that whole meme has fucked up society.
So you're saying you don't believe the science with a trademark?
Well, that's what people have completely science. Science is an ongoing discussion, and people have completely bastardized. Like, oh, yeah,
I know.
Dude, I'm
of course, dude,
I'm ranting. I'm ranting. I'm not.
Listen,
yelling
if you're gonna blasphemize Saint Fauci in front of me, we're gonna have problems.
That motherfucker. God, no, but it's. So again, I can't help but bring it back to Bitcoin because this is the fiat. This is the
Bitcoin solves this.
Well, maybe
actually, seriously, there's a direct line there. You can totally make that argument, and it's a reasonable one.
Yeah, like
it's funny to say, hospitals are dehumanizing. Bitcoin solves this, but that's actually not a crazy argument.
Well, before we even get to Bitcoin solves this, like again, it's a perverse incentive system that like you cannot save money, so you have to keep your incentive is not to actually make somebody healthy. It's to keep have them coming back to you to buy your wares.
The one thing I would say is that it does not require Bitcoin for people to decide. This is a sovereignty issue. I'm a shit all over the American healthcare system, but I'm also going to turn that fucking mirror on us. If you accept it, don't bitch about sociopaths exploiting you if you fucking go in there and accept it.
Yeah.
If you give up your sovereignty, you deserve everything you get. Period. And that's the hard truth. So many people I deeply agree with, bitch and moan, and these people are awful. I've been doing it in this podcast. At the same time, if you give your shit up to them, if you voluntarily consent, then you got nothing to complain about. Shut the fuck up.
Well, now you're getting to the meat of the subject. It's so easy to do it, though. It's so easy to submit. It's easy to submit. They make it very easy.
When I'm selling shit, I want to make the sequence real smooth and easy. Mm-hmm. Yes, of course they make it easy. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah. Well, why? Can we convince more people to take the?
See, hold on. Listen to what you just said. Can we convince?
No, they have to convince themselves.
Well, no. I'll tell you what I do. You can do whatever you want, man. I'll tell you what I do. And if you actually look at my doom, man, you know that podcast, The First Million, Sam Parr and Shawnee, It's like a big podcast, right? It's not in the Bitcoin space, so you haven't heard of it. But it's what your podcast is to Bitcoin. Theirs is to like young entrepreneur hustle. You know the hustle? You know, okay.
Yeah.
So it's the hustle's main podcast, right?
Okay.
And so I know Sam decently well, and he read the piece. I didn't like send it to him. He read it, and they talked about the piece for 10 minutes on the podcast, and it was the greatest thing I've ever heard to explain persuasion, right? Because Sam and Shawnee completely disagree. Like Sam's pretty leftist in a lot of ways. He doesn't think he is, but he really is. And they like completely disagree with everything I said. And then Sam said something that was so awesome. This thing I love about Sam is he's always willing to be honest about himself, right? Even when he's totally fucked up and wrong, he's still honest about himself. So it's awesome. He goes, man, I was so just in like I couldn't stop reading, and the piece was so good, and I find myself half believing a lot of what he says, even though I disagree with him, which tells you something's going on. And he goes, I think it's just maybe because the writing is so charismatic. It's just such a and that's not, man. People are like, oh, Tucker's a great writer. No. I'm actually not. I'm gonna tell you what I did in that piece, and this is exactly.
You're a good writer. I would.
Yeah, but that's not the thing here, right? All right, so I'll tell you, and I've seen a lot of Bitcoiners that are pretty good at this, truly, as well. I didn't try. If you read the piece, I don't try to convince anyone of anything. Like if you notice, I didn't. Here's what you should. There was no shame language.
Here's what I'm doing.
Right.
Getting my
everything.
body.
Here's what I'm thinking. Here's why I think that. Here's what I'm doing because of it. Here's what I might even be wrong, and here's what I think about that. And that's it. It was just what I'm doing and nothing else.
Yeah, that preface, the way you preface it, like even if I'm wrong, I will be better off for having done this. Is very powerful. And like, I'm trying to implement some of it in my life. Got to Texas. Now I've been back in the gym like a madman since I moved down here, trying to get like in physical shape.
You got to fit on with us husky Texans.
Yeah. But then like waiting to get my license, gonna get my gun, trying to procure beef. We haven't talked about that. The beef initiative.
I got cows on my farm, man.
Yeah. And at some point,
license to carry. There you go, Texas LTC.
That's my next step. But yeah, no, it's again becoming sovereign. Bitcoin was obviously a first step for me becoming financially sovereign.
Yeah.
Which has provided me the opportunity to do a lot of things that I otherwise wouldn't if I didn't get into Bitcoin. So I'm very thankful for that. But no, it's hard. You have a family, you have responsibilities, and I think the daunting nature of taking sovereignty over your life is too much for people to get over.
Responsibility is a motherfucker. Because once you take responsibility, you realize when shit's not going, you don't get to blame anyone else. That is the other side of sovereignty. I'm so glad you brought that up. That like it's easy to sit here and preach sovereignty, but when the rubber meets the road, it means it's up to you. And it doesn't mean no one can help, right? You can have a community. I got a wife, man. I got friends. But you are responsible, and you don't get to blame other people. It's such an easy, seductive pit to fall into. Man, that a huge part of my emotional work was getting rid of my victim mindset. I thought I knew how. I thought I'd rooted that shit out of me, and then I started psychedelic medicine about 3.5, almost 4 years ago, and dude, I blamed so much shit on my parents. Right? That's what. Yeah, okay, my mom did leave me with babysitters my whole childhood. That was horrible. I'm the one carrying it forward right now. Yeah, she did it. It happened. It sucked. Why the fuck am I holding on to it? It's not her responsibility. Now it's mine. It might not be my fault, but it is my responsibility now, and I'm the one holding it now, and I'm the one carrying it. And I'm the one, there's a great Buddhist saying, being angry is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
I was doing that. Like that's a victim mindset. I was about to say a bitch ass victim mindset, but I'm trying to get out of the judgmental shame sort of mindset, which that is. Yeah, and like, dude, man, rooting all that out was so hard, dude. Because then you got to face in yourself, man. Like, then it. And you want to talk about some of my grief? I'll tell you another one. I've had so many amazing opportunities in my life that I blew. right? All right, if we talk about there was a movie made about I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell. That movie should have been fucking amazing, and it was set up to be amazing, and I fucked it up. I
remember it being a flop. I don't remember watching it.
There's a lot of reasons why, right? But if I gave you all the details, it'd be a long, boring story. You'd be like, oh, dude, get this dude off my podcast. But let me tell you, like, see, even I'd be bored. Because I could be, oh, the director sucked. He did, right? This problem, that problem, this person fucked me. I picked all those motherfuckers. Like, I picked that director. So let's say he did suck. Motherfucker, who picked him?
Did you do it in haste? Why?
No, God's honest truth, man. He was a director that did the best job of massaging my ego the right way to get in. Okay. I'm not even mad at him, man. Like, he was just doing what he was trying to do to get ahead, right? It's not his job to do right by. It'd be nice if he did, but it's not his job to do right by me. It's my job to do right by me, right? So I can't he may have sucked as a director, but man, I picked him. Period.
It's taking responsibility for it. People want to abdicate blame on everybody
and then,
else.
man, I don't want to get into I did all kinds of other just stupid. And so, that's not even the biggest thing, man. I could detail you 10 other things where I have totally fucked up massive opportunities I had that people were bringing to me, good people bringing to me in love, and I shit on them. Oh, dude, man. And that is so hard to own, right? And I'm not even saying I wronged someone. That's hard. That's really hard. Mm-hmm. But there's most people are like, okay,
Or you're just like, it's not interesting?
Yeah.
Or
what do you mean with
when
what?
these opportunities were presented, where you're like, I don't have time for this. It's not interesting. I don't want to be doing this. Then in retrospect, you're like, oh, maybe I should have done that.
All right, man. I'll
you don't have.
No. I can't tell you who. Someone pretty well known was an early investor in Uber, who's a good friend of mine, and he basically offered to get me in. And this is when I say early, I mean this is back when people were making fun of ride sharing. Early. I think it was seed. It might have been A, but I think it was seed round. And so he's like, yeah, man, I can probably get you in for 25 or 50 and whatever. That was, whatever, $150, $200 million decision I made. And I dismissed him, not rudely, because he's a friend, but it was just more like, this is stupid. He didn't know what he's doing. I was very judgmental and very dismissive of angel investing and all the stuff he was doing at the time, which was all about me and my own insecurity because I was trying to do something else. And it had nothing to do with him at all. Mm-hmm. He's a great dude. I'm still friends with him. I love him. It was my own ego bullshit, man. Just straight up. It's what it was.
I started on the Uber seed round. That's
passed on the Uber seed round.
There's famous memes of the seed round and how much money was made. Yeah,
passed on the Uber seed round.
But you can't dwell on it, can you?
No. And here's the truth. It's probably a great thing I didn't get in. I think at that point in my life, it would have taken my life in a trajectory. If the movie had done well, that might have been the worst thing that ever happened to me in my life because I was a fucked up, kind of shitty person at that period. I was at the height of my really shittiness, and that would have locked me in at that stage of my life. Like if that movie had been a success, I never would have grown or changed in my life. That movie bombing was the inciting event for me to go on the trajectory I'm on now. Like I wouldn't have my wife, kids. I probably would have 5 or 6 kids by 5 or 6 different women. No, I'm serious. It'd be that situation. Truly, man. Like I know so many of these people too who got out to Hollywood, had one big success and never change. Right? I would have been that dude, I think.
What was that moment after the movie wasn't as successful as you had hoped, where you're like, fuck, maybe I'm not all that? Like, how did you?
It wasn't one moment. I'll tell you, man, I remember this so fucking clearly, man. It was September 27th, 2009. And I remember the date because that's my birthday. And that was the weekend that my movie came out. The movie Made About My Life that came out on my 33rd birthday. And we were in Phoenix, Arizona. We just landed at the airport, and I think I might be a day or two off here. It was either Friday or Saturday. And we landed, and the producer, Sean McKittrick, he was a nice guy. He told me the numbers. He emailed me the numbers with no comment. And I remember that's either really good or really bad. And I remember looking at the numbers. I didn't really quite understand how to read because it was the raw numbers. Like it wasn't like you see in the newspaper or as you kids now say online. But and so I was looking at it. I'm like, wait, hold on. At first I thought we were having a $10 million opening weekend. Turns out it was gonna be like, I don't know, $100,000 or something. Whatever. It was multiple zeros off. And so when I realized that. By the time I realized that, I got to the A-Loft in Tempe. This is such a painful memory. Like, like painful, hard memories, you remember every detail. Mm-hmm. Dude, I can tell you, to this day, I can draw the entire lobby of the A-Loft in the room from memory. And it's not like I stay in A-Lofts a lot, right? And I remember getting up to the room, and I remember I cried the hardest I think I had cried in my life since I was a young kid. And I honestly thought I was going to die. Like, not rationally, but it was that level of emotion and that level of crying. I felt like I was going to die. And it was the first time in my life where I ever understood why someone would commit suicide. I wasn't suicidal, but I was in so much pain. I'm like, fuck, now I know, like with so many people who commit suicide, like I just wanted the pain to stop. Like now I get it. Now I'm in the amount of pain where because before I'm like, not even judgmental sense. I just had never had that experience.
What was the particular pain? It was like, wow, people don't think.
So it's complex, right? But in a psychological sense, in a clinical sense, that moment was when the grandiosity of my narcissism broke. Right? So that's what narcissists do, is you use external validation to essentially fill the hole in your soul, right? I'm saying in the most simplistic way possible. And so up to that point, man, everything I'd done in my ascent to fame had worked, right? And so in my mind, I was a fucking genius. And, anyone who's famous, who intentionally goes out to seek fame, they're doing it almost always because they're trying to fill a hole, and usually it's a hole from mom and dad, right? You two don't love me. I'm going to make the world love me and show you. That was me, right? Mm-hmm. Or some dynamic like that, but that's the most common. And so totally unconscious, of course. I knew none of this at the time. And so, it worked. I got rich and I got famous. And girls were coming to sleep with me who I didn't know, and all this crazy, amazing shit you can't imagine until it happens. And then it's amazing. You're like, this is the greatest thing ever. And then it just keeps going. And all the fame and the money and the rise pushes all the feelings, the I'm not worthy, I'm not loved feelings away. What, you're looking anxious. You know what I'm talking about?
I can't stop thinking of BoJack Horseman for some reason. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah,
that
the
show.
cartoons. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's just like that.
You're the only person who's ever taken this story and said BoJack Horseman.
Well,
that's never happened before in 46 years of my life.
Well, it's true. Like, people try to fill this void, and again, it's circling back to
it's the most hilarious cultural reference.
It's the core. But again, it's the core, because I think that is actually a powerful show. Like, to get to the desperation and depression that exists in a lot of the people seeking fame specifically.
It's usually much deeper than depression. Yeah. It's much deeper, dude. It's fun. I thought I was kind of a narcissistic asshole, and then I got to LA, and I'm like, oh no, I have a soul. These people are I didn't know what a soulless narcissist was until I got to LA and got in the entertainment business. I was like, holy fuck, this is horrible. I had no idea it could be like this. It's so much worse than you can even imagine, dude. But well, actually, no, now people can. All the Harvey Weinstein and Me Too stuff, I'm so happy that happened, man. That was we didn't even take meetings with Miramax. That was back when he had Miramax, because everyone knew he was a rapist. And not just that. Oh, dude, everyone in Hollywood knew. It's not everyone knew, Everyone knew. There was a screenwriter who worked for me, Max, who wrote a whole thing about this on Facebook. He's like, if you came in the office, you knew. We all knew. They all everyone knew. This is not but it was. I'm not a woman, right? He's not gonna rape me. But also, he fucked everybody on deals. So it's like he's a literal rapist, and he's gonna screw you on a deal. Why are people doing business with this dude?
Well, again, getting back to sociopaths winning. Right?
Oh, dude.
And so our culture is fucked right now. That's something that I can't stop focusing on. Is like our culture is somewhat demonic and devoid of any actual fulfillment for most people.
I would say that culture is. Mine is not.
No, not yours.
Okay, if you want to say the shared American culture, I'm with you.
Yes.
It's
pervasive.
I have started to really focus on intent and meaning behind words. I used to be pretty sloppy with the way I talked.
I'm pretty sloppy.
Yeah, I used to be very sloppy. I'm less sloppy now. I'm not as precise as I'd like. But some of the things I focus, shame-based language, have to, must, got to, should. I don't think any of those words exist in that Doomer optimism piece, right? And that was the point I was making there is like, you want to help people, do your work, show them what you're doing, and that example can help. Be the example, not the commander, right? Leading by example, those are always the best people. And look at history. Buddha, ultimate lead by example. Jesus, ultimate lead by example. Mother Teresa, Rumi, Krishna, all whatever. Take your pick in any culture. Ultimate lead by example, right? None of them are sitting back telling people what to do, right? They're all lead by examples. I didn't really quite understand this last couple of years, how much I used shame-based language and was telling other people what to do. And I realized realization came in a psychedelic medicine session. Every time I'm telling someone else what to do, I'm talking to myself. Without exception.
I'm guilty of this.
Every fucking time. And so I'm like, well, what if I stop talking to other people and telling them what to do and I just do it? And then I tell people what I'm doing, right? Because I love examples too. You know, like Buddha has helped me, even though the dude's been dead for thousands of years, his example has been a huge help to me. Same with Jesus, same with whoever, right? Anyone doing cool shit. Like, oh, look at Tony Robbins doesn't help me because Tony Robbins just tells me what to do. And I know Tony's life and it's fucked. Like I know Tony. Like I know he's whatever. I know he's helpful for a lot of people, cool, at a certain level of consciousness. If Tony's really good, I think, at pulling people out of a certain level, at getting to another level. But that energy, that type of person, right? He's in his 60s, 70s now. That group that's all command-based, finger point, do this, do that. I think the next wave, and this is what I'm going to be, but and who I'm being now and who I'm trying to become as much as possible is none of this, all this. But not in like a narcissistic way. More in a, hey, listen, here's what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. If it can help you, cool, great. And I'd love to see what you're doing if I can learn from you.
Yeah, I mean, it's very inspiring too. Again, going back to the Doomer optimism piece specifically, like it's like, oh fuck, like the way, again, you say you're not using shameful language. It's like, fuck, maybe I should be focusing on becoming sovereign, getting a ranch, getting some land, and not depending on others and blaming others.
Well, do you want to?
I do. I think I do at least. But then there's the other thing too. I'm 30. I've got a child, another one on the way. Pretty busy from a career perspective. It's trying to prioritize. That's the hard thing. For me specifically.
What's hard? Prioritizing is hard?
Yes, for me.
Why? What's hard about it, I should say?
I feel like there's a lot of opportunity. Again, I want to set my family up for greatness into the future. I have this podcast. I work at a VC firm. I sit on the board of a mining company. And it's like, all right, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And then how do I prioritize family and securing? There's the first. Family and securing the families first. And then it's like, all right, how much do I take on after that?
So obviously I'm not going to tell you what to do, right?
Yes.
After I just had that whole thing. But I will tell you how I navigated something similar, right? And this might help you. I'll tell you the question I kept coming back to. It is, what do I want? Right? That's one of those weird, deceptively simple questions, right? And oh, I want blah blah blah. No. And my wife and I both did this together. Really, and it took us months, honestly. Like I'm like, oh yeah, was this an afternoon? Oh, I was wrong. It took us months to really. What do I want? What do we really want? Well, this. Why do we want that? What do you want, and then why? What do you want, and not in a judgmental sense. Just understanding like, what is it you're really at? When you say you want a Ferrari, why do you want a Ferrari? Is it because you want girls to fuck you? Is it because you want to race it? Is it because you lusted after one as a kid and it's going to signify that you've arrived? Any of these reasons are fine. Like, then just understand why you want what you want to make sure you're actually getting what you want, right? Mm-hmm. And so months and months and months of us really asking ourselves what we wanted, right? Both as a family, a couple, a family, and then us individually in ourselves and our businesses. And it took a while for us to first understand what we want. Then it's like, oh, okay. Now, then prioritizing's super easy. But if you, I had the same problems prioritizing before I really was super clear with myself what I wanted and what was most important to me.
Yes. Now, with that perspective, I think I do know what I want. I want what we actually are doing now here in Austin, which I fucking love, is Sunday, just getting the family together,
right,
having a fire pit, eating multiple meals together, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and
right,
just enjoying each other's
just a whole day of being a fat ass.
No, yeah. That
is judgmental right there, but I'm more fucking with
fat,
you.
Yeah, you gorge. But like also just being around family.
Of course.
Having that connection. And that's been one of my favorite things about moving, because I haven't lived in the same city as my brother and sister in 12 years. And in the last 3,
and they live at your house, right?
My sister does. My brother has his own place.
Okay. Well, that's cool. And that's a great place to start. And the cool thing with what you want is it can change as much as you want.
Yeah.
Right? Like my wife and I started doing this about 3-4 years ago, pre-COVID. And then COVID shifted everything for us. Because pre-COVID, we had been talking about how we want to get some land someday. It was someday. Then COVID hit, and it was like, even before all the chaos and mess, right? Where I'm like, oh shit, we need to start getting ready for chaos. It was more like, everyone says they love their family, right? And I do. COVID made me realize I actually like them. Right? I actually like being around my kids and my wife. Like, I really like being around my wife. Like, I don't like being away from her. And I was like, what the fuck was I doing before? Like, I was doing a bunch of stuff and not even traveling that much. I didn't think compared to most people, I wasn't. But like, I'm home now, like I'm talking about, mid 2020. I'm home all the time and it's fucking great. Like, I love it. This is amazing. What was I doing before? And it really, we sat down, what do we want? Fuck, well, I know what we want to be out in land, not just as an abstract idea of land and connecting to nature, but because we can spend all our time together in a place we like and, going for walks in this, supposed to be a fancy suburb, this shitty exurb, like sucks. I want to go for a walk in nature, not in this crap subdivision.
Yes.
So it can change, dude. Like, it's not like, okay, I've said what I want. You don't have to, that's not your thing forever.
You iterate, you calibrate. Yeah.
Exactly. But it is hard to prioritize without knowing what you want.
Tucker Max, you're filled with incredible wisdom. I feel like
hard earned. Harder. The saying, like, idiots repeat their mistakes, smart people learn from their mistakes, and genius learns from the mistakes of others? I'm not genius. I've made all these mistakes. I'm not even sure I'm smart, but I've definitely made all of these mistakes.
Fuck. I'm having a lot of introspection right now. Now I'm thinking, like, fuck, am I a good father? Am I a good husband? Like, these are
good. What do you mean by good? That's shame-based again. Good. Good on what
are we
measure?
Or am I allowing my wife to be self-fulfilled? Have our goals.
Allowing her. So you're in charge?
No, not allowing.
Well, she's a slave. You own her, right?
No,
Are you allowing her?
I see precise language.
No, but seriously, I used to do the same thing, man. Think about that for a second.
Yeah. Yeah. My neighbor, or have we set up a life where
where we can both find our own fulfillment.
Yeah.
That's a totally different orientation, man. Right. And obviously, you're not like I'm sure you're not some patriarchal dick to your wife, but think about that language for a second, man. It's not a small thing, I don't think.
No, can't be sloppy with it. That's something I got to be more precise.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where like, I mean, I always known what NLP and all that stuff is, and I know it. But then once I realized, I was like, fuck, man, I use so much shame-based language and so much judgment of myself, right? And then I'll tell you when it really hit me in the nuts, man. When my son was like 4, he maybe 3, he did something. He dropped a cup or something. He goes, "Oh, you're so stupid," and I was like, "Oh fuck." He got that from me. Like children don't do that to themselves. He heard that from me, and because God knows my wife, I've never called a kid stupid. You'd have to kill me before I'm calling my kids stupid. I would but he imitates me. I mean, he's like a little version of me, right? Yeah. He loves like so much of what I do. I can't tell you how much I've learned about myself by watching it reflected in him. And nothing has been a quicker impetus to change things that need to change than that. Like when I saw him, oh my God, I felt like my heart fell out of my ass, dude. It was, whoa. Because it's like, that's I knew immediately where he got it. Hearing me talk to me.
Having shame.
Oh, fuck, Tucker, why'd you do that? That's so stupid.
Yeah. Like
that internal dialogue that I'll sometimes make external, right? Very hard on myself, very judgmental on myself, right? So I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to put that down. I'm not going to pass that to him.
Language is important. How do you have how do you put the intent in motion?
I'll tell you what I did. That's all I can do. First, I had to decide, okay, this was important, right? I had to have that trigger event, seeing my son, do it. And then it was like, I sat him down, talked to him about it, whatever. And then for me, I had to, it really just it became a matter of two things. Paying attention to what I was saying as I was saying it, correcting it immediately. Drop something, Tucker, you're so no, I'm not. I can have compassion for myself. I just made a mistake. It's fine. Right? And notice it. Once I started noticing it, dude, it was actually breathtaking. Like all day, every day. Shame-based. Mainly with myself. I was actually really good with it with my kids. Like I almost never say this stuff to my kids. Never. Because I'm sensitive to that. That's my grandmother and mother were very much like that. So I was very sensitive about not doing it to my kids. It turns out I was doing it to myself. I took their orientation to me and replicated it in my own head. So I had to get very conscious of that, number one. And then number two, the deeper work, honestly, is, man, I had to go in and deal with all my shame, grief, sadness, whatever. And the more I can feel that, the more I can, and let that go, the more I'm able to recognize the less of that stuff, because the language is driven by an emotion, right? It's not just coming out of nowhere. It's not just language, that kind of stuff. There's an emotion behind it, a feeling behind it. And so, because that's how my mother and grandmother talked to me a lot, right? And so like that belief was embedded in a deep part of me. And so it kind of had to chip away and get at the belief. And it's still not gone. Like if you listen to this podcast, I promise you'll find some examples from me.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. And so you've touched on it many times throughout. Psychedelic therapy has really helped you come to a lot of these realizations.
It's been the most important thing I've done for myself in my life. And it's funny, people are like, aren't you married? And don't you have kids? I'm like, yeah. And I probably wouldn't be married right now. And I'd be a terrible father had I not had that tool to really help me on my therapeutic journey.
How profound do you think it can be for society in terms of having more individuals heal themselves? And obviously it's becoming more popular. It's becoming more accepted.
Right,
Johns Hopkins.
Of course. As big as you think Bitcoin's going to be, I am that bullish on psychedelics.
Okay. Well, I mean,
I'm kind of joking, but I'm not, right? Like, I don't comparison, whatever. The wave that Bitcoin is creating in finance, I think psychedelics is creating the same size of wave in not just psychology, like everything. This is, it's hard to even explain, right? Everything I'm about to say would seem absolutely crazy to me 5 years ago. But I feel like trauma is the ocean that everyone in Western society swims in and doesn't realize it, right? It is just like you would say, pre-Bitcoin, fiat is the ocean everyone swims in financially and not realize it, right? Emotionally, socially, the same thing is true for trauma. What Bitcoin does to fiat, psychedelics with proper integration work, not by themselves, does to trauma.
So let's dive into that proper integration, because I've indulged in psychedelics many times throughout my life.
Right.
I love psychedelics. I do think they have this ability to humble you.
Yes.
Because you realize that you can't, like the way we perceive the world sober or
is that teeny little slice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it really makes you realize your size in this universe and what we're doing or whatever this is.
Right.
And it's a very humbling experience. But
yes,
how enhanced is it with proper guidance? And
so there's two reasons to use psychedelics. The 60s narrative, a lot of it was psychedelics as mind expansion. And psychedelics are that's kind of what you're talking about. And psychedelics are very, very effective and useful at that. The other reason to use psychedelics is therapy, healing, right? Trauma work specifically. And in my experience, I have not really used psychedelics much for pure mind expansion. You're going to get both, right? Like it's one of those baby with the bathwater things. They're going to come together. I have used psychedelic. I've never used them recreationally. Truly, like the first time I ever did MDMA was MDMA therapy. Same with mushrooms, same with LSD. So people are like, what? I'm like, go read the books again. No drugs. Like one time I ate a pot brownie or something. That's not even a real psychedelic. But like, that's it. Never. And so like, for me, they have been an insanely effective tool for getting to the talk therapy is extreme. I did years of talk therapy. It's extremely important, but talk therapy is thinking, right? And thinking is important. It's like the metaphor I always use is imagine you gotta go into Manhattan. A map of Manhattan is extremely useful, right? But if you're like, hey, sucker, I'm gonna go to Manhattan. And I'm like, okay, here's your map. And you're like, all right, cool. I'm like, no, that's it. That you just get the map. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? I got to also walk the island. That's what emotions are, right? Walking the island. And for me, without psychedelics, I was able to basically investigate almost none of my own emotional space. I was totally disconnected from my body. So like, imagine like I had a map of the whole island and I was only hanging out in Battery Park City. Nowhere else, right? Nowhere. And so like psychedelics basically unlocked the whole island and I got to walk the whole island, right? And so therapy is like the map. So I kind of knew where I was going and I was able to see to make a ton of progress because I already had a really good map. The problem comes that people go into psychedelics with no map and no plan to make a map. And they're like, I'm just going to take a bunch of psychedelics. It's like walking the island randomly, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you walk the island randomly, then you don't come out with any plan. You don't really know where you've been, which by itself is not bad. But if you're using them to heal stuff, it's not going to get you healed. It's not going to do much. It'll do some, but it's not going to do much, right? And so, and also, like, look, man, if you don't know how to deal with grief, and first time I took LSD therapeutically, I've never taken it recreationally, but first time I did LSD, I took a tiny amount. I laid on that fucking sofa and heaving, racking, full body sobs for 9 hours.
holy shit.
I remember the time I just talked about in the Aloft, the movie came out and bombed? It was like that for 9 hours. I didn't even think I was going to die. At that point, I thought I had died multiple times. I mean, it was like, I had no idea. One, I had this much grief. I didn't know there was this much grief in the world. It was, dude, I had so much. And so like, if I was trying to, a lot of people take this stuff and I get a bad trip. If I wasn't ready for that, if I didn't have a great guide, if I didn't have a therapeutic base on which to put that and understand that and process that, that could have totally put me sideways and unmoored me. Totally. Like I honestly don't understand how people do this shit recreationally. Like I get why sometimes someone takes LSD and goes to a concert and loses their mind, because the reality is why that happens a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times is because they have a ton of trauma and their family has totally gaslit them and it pretends it's not there and it comes out on that shit, right? Which is like, that's the point of psychedelics when done right, is to get it up and out.
It's catharsis.
Exactly right. And so 2-3 weeks after that LSD session, my dude, I was like light as a feather. I felt so fucking amazing. I had all this shit that I let go of that I've been holding on for 40 something years. And like, I was like the happy people who knew me for years were like, who the fuck are you? What are you like? What's going on? Not in a bad way, but yeah, if you don't know how to navigate it and have someone there helping you, luckily I got connected into a great guide network who are very skilled practitioners, and so like good people there helping me. Man, I hesitate to think like how if I had taken this shit I think there's a reason I knew on some level you won't go down this path yet. Like I wasn't ready. If I'd taken this shit in my 20s, man, I can't. Oh God.
You interacted with some demons. You come
Dude, it would have been so dark, man.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I know a lot of people who like do mushrooms in high school. Like, it was so dark, I'm never going back. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. Well, when you're ready to face the demons, though. And that's the lesson, is the demons aren't actually demons. It's all part of you.
Yes.
It's all part of you, and once you embrace it all, then you become a whole person, and like life gets pretty fucking amazing.
Allowing yourself to love yourself and
all parts of yourself, not just the quote good parts.
yes, and accepting your flaws and
it's what Jung calls the shadow. It's classic psychological concept. So much of psychedelics is seeing, facing, embracing the shadow. That's not the only part, but that's a huge part, especially the healing part. I mean, that if you want to understand trauma, just understand the shadow. It's not exactly the same thing, but very, very similar.
it's the Catholic suppression.
Oh, dude, totally.
It's
100%.
Yeah.
All that fucking shame, man.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff. It fucking, and so you're bullish on this becoming more. I mean, I'm very excited for veterans specifically, like using this therapy to get over PTSD, because you want to talk about trauma.
Yeah, those dudes need it bad.
And being thrown into some shit.
Most of the studies are with war veterans and rape victims, and it's going to be amazingly beneficial. It already is amazingly beneficial for them. That's actually not the wave I'm talking about, man. I'm super excited for them. It's going to be people like you and I who are 5-10 years behind us, who don't even realize they have issues but are totally fucked up and don't know why. I'm telling you, man, this is going to unlock so much. And a lot of it is going to be really hard and dark, especially at the beginning, man. I've just been through, like, I'm not done with my therapy, but I'm definitely through the beginning stages, right? And dude, no one could have been more ready than me. All this therapeutic background, super well educated. I got in with amazing guides. I had the best mentors. Everything was set up for me perfectly to make this work. And I made it work, and it was still hard as fuck. And it almost broke me, and I wanted to quit. Multiple times. Now I'm so glad. Like when I say I wasn't going to quit, I knew I was going to keep going. But it's the hardest shit I've ever done in my life, is facing my own stuff. This stuff is just a tool to open that up, man. It doesn't do the work for you, right? And those are actually the people who get sideways. Like, oh, I took MDMA and all this horrible stuff came up, and my life is all changed, and now I want to put the genie back in the bottle. It's like,
you gotta confront the shadow.
Normally when you're going through shit, you're better off to just keep going. Yeah, sometimes you can turn back around, I guess, but
Where's that? That's gonna lead you right back to where you are.
Well, but for some people, man, this even was a famous St. Augustine quote, "Dear Lord, give me chastity and continence, but not yet." If you're not ready, you're not ready. No judgment, man. Like I meet a ton of people who know me well, seen the change. They're like, dude, this is amazing. I want to do it. And I'll tell them and they'll be like, I'm not ready. I'm like, okay, cool. It'll be here when you're ready. Do not rush. I'm so glad I didn't rush into this. If I'd done this in my 20s or 30s, I think it would have gone At a minimum, it would have been way harder on me, and I think it could have gone sideways. And I'll tell you how it goes sideways. You can have bad trips or whatever. I mean, there's some extreme psychological break issues that can happen, but you can generally vet for those pretty easily. Where I see it go sideways now is a lot of people get into what's called spiritual bypass, where like I know people who've done ayahuasca 60 times and their lives are still totally fucked up. Right, that's spiritual bypass. It's where like they're chasing the peak experience, and they think they're making progress because they keep having these peak experiences, but they don't actually change anything in their lives, right? And so like it doesn't make them bad people, but it's you kind of get stuck. It's a different form of hedonism.
Inaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not inaction. It's a different form of hedonism. Like my early life kind of fit the Joker hedonistic archetype really well. Mm-hmm. The spiritual archetype can get it. The hedonistic form of that is just chasing the high and never actually doing the work. Yeah. Like I know a lot of people, man, like they're like, oh yeah, they play the spiritual card a bunch, and I'm like, listen, man, they're like, oh, you blah blah, come do it. I'm like, I'm not doing anything with you. You guys are just doing drugs with your friends, which is cool. No judgment. I'm not into that.
I was just about to judge. I was gonna say like the hedonism is pretty pervasive, and somebody went through it myself. Obviously, I'm partying every weekend in college and for an extended period after that. But then for me personally, I'll just say my experience, it just got boring. Standing in bars, like, why are we doing this every weekend? Yeah. What's going on here?
And it got tedious. For me, it got tedious and unfulfilling, really. Mm-hmm. Especially when it became my job. It's like, oh, God, this is the worst.
Yeah, I imagine like an MTV Real World person, that's what their career becomes, is just going.
They get stuck in that.
And partying.
Yeah. That almost happened to me.
Yeah, it's again, now you've fucking shook me.
I shamed you into not shaming yourself.
Yeah, you should. Well, I'm not trying to have shameful language for other people, but again, my experience was like, all right, I don't want to be doing this bar stuff every weekend.
Totally.
There's more out there.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin helped me, like provided
Bitcoin solves that.
Provide an outlet where it was like, I'd rather be focusing my efforts on educating people about Bitcoin than.
Yeah, I want to do something productive and beneficial.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, there's nothing wrong with going through those phases. Totally. And nothing wrong with staying in the phases for a long time. There's everyone's path up the mountain is their own, man. It goes different, you know?
Yeah. Fuck, man. I could keep going on like this for like hours and hours, but.
How long? Yeah, we've been going for a while, haven't we? What time is it?
2:16.
2:16.
Wait, we've been going for, oh yeah. You know what's funny? You scheduled 2 hours for this. I'm like, what were we talking about for 2 hours? This fucking guy. Yeah, it's been great. We can keep going. We totally could keep going. Although I have to say, I think I have a 1 o'clock lunch.
I have a 1 o'clock call as well, unfortunately.
I do.
We got to do this again.
And it's if only you lived near me.
Well, I do have good.
Dude, I'll tell you what we should do. Why don't you come out? You can bring your gear. You can come out to the ranch.
I would love to. I'd love to bring the boy, the wife.
Totally. Bring your kids. We got cows. We got dogs. We might have our sheep by then. I have a gun range. You can shoot my stuff. I know. I mean, I have a full no bullshit gun range at my ranch, but that's for the adults. The kids, I got trampoline, ninja course, swings, tree houses. It's amazing.
I'm gonna take.
You want to get the tree house? I can see you're like, dude, I want to go be a kid there.
Well, I want to take you up on it because again, you were describing like you sit down with your wife and you're like, what do you want? And that's something my wife and I. Like you said before COVID, your wife and I were like, we want to go buy some land. We've been talking about that for like 3 years now.
So she's going to deliver a baby in the next 5-10 days. Give us about 3 weeks, a month.
Holy crap. I thought you were going to say 3 months at least.
No. I mean, to host people, it's no problem. Like within a month. This is her 4th kid. She's like an Irish Catholic now. Just get them out and keep working the field or something.
Well, and then I hear it, like baby number 4, the kids start raising each other a bit too. So you're about to.
Man, if that happens, the youngest will be feral. I cannot imagine that.
Well, Tucker Max, you are an inspiration. A really 17-year-old Marty is like, holy shit! I can't believe.
Very cool.
Number 1, you're talking to him, and number 2, it's in this context. So. Thank you again for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm happy to be here.
And thank you for being a fucking good example out there. and shaking me up today. You shook me up today. I'm like thinking, yeah, I don't know if you saw like the blank stares I was getting. I was like being introspective as you're talking. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing?
So okay, so you're on board now. You're buying doggy coin.
Yeah, Elon sold me. I hear you're gonna be able to buy a Tesla for Dogecoin. So
Oh, just kidding. Shitcoin jokes at Bitcoiners never get old. Never. Because there's always that moment where like, is this motherfucker serious? Is he trying to sell me a shitcoin? I'll fucking kill him.
do you understand the stakes, Tucker?
Right. Do you not know what proof of stake is? Trusted third party. Like,
Well, sir, this was a pleasure.
nice meeting you. Definitely
Nice to meet
hanging
you
out
as well.
Definitely.
Peace and love.